not planned. So
okay.
How it came to be, planned or not. That's part of the fun. Yeah. That's like the geology. It's like the real planets are made up of a mixed and is chaotic, and I guess fantasy planets have a tendency of becoming virtual or in a chaotic way too. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's do it.
And Ed, you recovered from last Saturday night?
Oh yeah.
That was a great game to watch.
Thank you.
It was. Yeah, it was fun. Boy, those ladies, they rock. There was a lot of standing back. I'm gonna get trampled, you know.
I forewarned you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
That's part of the charm of mixing. I knew that the two groups it would be kind of interesting, and it turned out that way.
Yeah.
I'm working on something too. It's not official yet. With Luke Gygax and crew on for Gary Con too. So as long as you're there, we're good.
Oh yeah, I'm still waiting for my sad sack employer to actually schedule me. They haven't even managed to get schedules for the end of December yet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it's a library, you know.
Yeah.
The librarians, the end of the year, the longtime librarians. It's take your time, your vacation time, use it or lose it. So they all vanish. Here. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yep. So I work one day next week, right? I only work Monday. I'm off the whole week, and then I got some travel I got to do for work. But my last day of work for the year is December 14th, and I'm off till January 3rd. Just because I have all this time to use it or lose it. So yeah.
Well, you see, if you were the head scheduler for the library, and you just spent a month in Greece, and we're all looking at schedules that literally are made up as they go along, because our big boss, the one that gets 6 figures of income a year, has advanced Alzheimer's and couldn't schedule her way out of the paper bag.
Oh, I hope she's not watching. Okay.
No, I don't. This is a woman who turns her computer off by stepping on the power bar.
Yes, I like it. Wow.
Yeah. And I actually went into her office once because she summoned me, and there was whiteout on her computer screen.
Well, a little, you can use that for many different things.
Well, yes, you can. But
Jay, it's awesome to hear you defending old ladies.
The temptation to scroll her mouse wheel so the text moves would be overwhelming.
Thank you. I shall use that next week. Oh yes.
I couldn't help myself there. I'm just, the weekends
okay.
here. The weekends here. I work one day, and out of the next 9 or 10 or whatever, I'm in a good mood.
Excellent.
In a good mood,
Paint some minis, Jay.
That's Bill the Master Crafter's job. He can paint. I just tell him what to paint. I got him chained downstairs, so.
Improve the dungeon, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it now. Your wife won't let you expand upwards, so you're expanding downwards.
I expand downwards, definitely.
Yep. We'll see when we get presented with level 2 of the dungeon. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. But I got no complaints. Things are going well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
This is the way it should be.
Yes, definitely.
After all these years of work, you should be able to turn and look at your collection and go, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
See, he's making me feel much better about my collection now. I'm like, yeah. That's what happened. I look at my miniatures and my little hawkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, Patrick? Kai, Gabriel, Mystical. Good to see you all.
Hey, Mystical's here. Awesome.
Tonight is 2 $25 gift certificates for Frog Guy. I haven't started it up yet, and it's interesting, with Frog Guy and Trollord, Oh, we got to get that, Alyssa, Anna. We got to get them the Christmas thing that we did last year. We got to get that going again.
Oh yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Yep. It's time to invite them and
it's time to invite them and milk them for every little thing we can.
Yep.
I think we had 32 giveaways at last Christmas show, fantasy mapping show.
Yeah,
32. It was just like, hey, Wiley.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a fun one tonight. I saw the dates on some of these on them. I'm like, that was 50 years ago. I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, this is like pre-chainmail. That's awesome. Yeah, it's so awesome.
Well, the guys from the Mages and Sages podcast, 2 of them flew up from Orlando to go through my sea cans of papers, and they found some school exercise books from grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4, in which I was bored and I drew with pencil crayons, color, double-page spread fantasy maps, not the realms. I was just making stuff up as I went along.
Oh, you had to practice a bit.
Yeah, grade 2 geography, I was bored, so I drew my own fantasy world. And they have taken one of them and they are playing with it digitally, so that that we now have a digital map of world, and so we're going to make it. This is all very unofficial because it hasn't happened yet. We're going to make it a shared setting. Because they've done all the work. So, and I mean, it looks like a kid drew it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it geographically, but some of the names are sort of what I would call fantasy clumsy. They're not copies; they're just clumsy. I'm slightly more elegant since because
Gabriel, we're gonna go into this is gonna be an interesting discussion tonight. I don't want to ruin any of it for anyone, but it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really cool.
Players can live out their characters' adventures in tales.
Like I said, I didn't tease out any of these because I wanted to save them all.
Yeah, save the best.
Yeah, I got the I guess Ben Riggs got from Alex the ones he owns. But they're Forgotten Realms, so they are actually put together, right? The Forgotten Realms maps that he has, these are well before those maps.
Yeah, well, okay. 4 of the pages I sent you are part of that master map, except Alex can't see 2 of the pages because TSR slapped their Moonshaes, which was Doug Niles' Albion campaign, over top of mine.
Oh.
So you're seeing the original Moonshaes.
Whoa! Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, those are. You see, what happened was my originals were faint HB pencil, okay, and Jeff had warned me, don't send originals in the mail, and he was right. Because there's something I mailed, I think the 3rd package in 1986 is still on the way. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's. Hey, April.
Yeah. So you scanned them or photographed?
No, there were no scans in those days. There were no scanners. There was the military in Canada had a plotter, but it wasn't really a scanner. And I took them to the library photocopy, which in those days was a giant sheet of paper with a rubber cover, a flexible rubber cover.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah. And I took each individual sheet and photocopied it, pulling the darkening lever all the way over, so it was readable, and then sent those to Jeff. He taped them all together with Scotch tape on the floor. And Karen Boongarden couldn't use the ladies' room because Jeff had the end cubicle, and the only open space of carpet was between his cubicle and the library and the men's and ladies' rooms. So I'm afraid poor Karen peed into a vase.
We got to start the show early because we're getting into good stuff. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm getting this. I'm trying to send April a message. I'm trying to get April a link. Well, a doc here, and that's there it goes. I'm doing this. I got goaded in by Jimmy Duffy to do this. So Yeah, music. The music. I own the rights to the music. I don't. All the music that you hear, I own the rights to, or my sponsors do. Yep. So I only use stuff that I own.
Anyway, yeah, Jeff taped them all together, and then he took a yellow highlighter and underscored some of the names so they could read them. He took a blue highlighter and did all the seacoasts, and then he did green, yes. Like that. And then when TSR shut down, Julia Martin raided it out of Jeff's cube. Because they were emptying the building and throwing everything in the garbage that wasn't labeled for renting. And much later, she sold it to Alex. But those are my photocopies. The originals are right behind me in this room.
Yes, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll go over everything. Our shtick is to talk over the music and over all the ads, everyone. You know that, so... Wow, Moose. Moose says that, Lord Kazama, could you mention Ed? I went to an estate sale and found a copy of FR1, Waterdeep of the North and the North, still in the original plastic for $10.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
I brought up Cameron's maps here because I'm still not showing any of the other stuff, so...
And just those copies are impressive enough when you see them taped together. I've seen those copies that Alex in the game hole, and that was impressive. Yeah.
Well, those are my crudest maps, except for the player maps. I drew deliberately inaccurate and simplified player maps that you would buy at a tavern. But aside from those, that master map is the largest coverage, smallest scale map, and it's as crude as they get. Whereas when I got down to dungeon maps and building maps, I got more and more more precise. And most of my maps, the sort of small place maps, villages and towns, I was copying the style of Canadian topographic maps of the day.
Ah, that's why, because there is such a wonderful, distinct style. And the interesting thing is that to this day, the maps are still inspired by that style. That kind of is amazing. Yep.
The thumbs up, just like my emote, the thumbs up emote there, which I got there. So good evening, everyone. All right, so we had last month off because we were all so confused mentally, all three, Alyssa, Anna, and myself, right? We were just all a mess last month. We all had so many things going on, so we kind of skipped last month for the first time in 2 years, and now we're on episode 17, Fantasy Mapping Show once a month. I'm Jay Killer Kazumba, with me, Alyssa Faden, legendary map maker, Anna Meyer, legendary map maker, and of course, welcome. And he was just on. I DM'd for him last Saturday, so we got Ed Greenwood back for another wonderful evening. Thank you so very much, Ed, for coming on. I am really excited about this discussion tonight, and you were kind enough to share some of these great, maps, and we're gonna have some really cool questions. Let me set up the giveaway real quick here, and what we're doing is we're doing 2 $25 gift certificates to Frog Guide Games. Okay, so I'll give you a digital code, exclamation point drawing. We'll do that at the end of the show. This is 5 straight days of streams here, and thanks, Kai. Thank you so very much. Thank you for the follow. Minor illusion, really appreciate it. So, Ed, I know we were talking a little bit. I saw these dates on these maps because you dated them all, which was awesome, in the PDF, and I kind of converted them over to a JPEG so I could show them on the main screen here. I haven't put any. The ones down below me are the camera maps, right? The ones you see right below me, they're Alex Kammer's Forgotten Realms maps that Ben Riggs kind of showed everyone because I guess at Gamehole Con, Alex let him take pictures of them and then he put them out on Facebook. These are not, we got stuff beyond this, but is that the culmination of pre-TSR? Like, I know.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. But before that, you were saying, I mean, the stuff we have is much earlier than this, right? We're going to see stuff tonight that is 50 years old. Oh, yes. Do I have a PTSR map? Yeah, we have PTSR maps. Yes. But wait do you see? It's not the realms in PTSR. It's locations. You'll see. This is going to be an exciting time tonight. Some of these I noticed have log numbers on them from when you submitted them to TSR, showing them what you were all about. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ones that have those page numbers and so on, which by the way were just typed up on a typewriter and then cut out and then taped on. You know, we're real old school here because
that's the way we all did it back then.
Yeah. And what I was doing, that was the 1986 turnover of the realms.
Okay.
And so the page numbers, they'll say things like a first look at the Forgotten Realms, a second look at the Forgotten Realms, page 6 of 55 or whatever, a third look, you know, and so what they are is me sending whatever Jeff Grubb asked for that week. TSR finally bit the bullet and said, oh, okay, the mail's losing too much stuff. Here's our FedEx account. Don't use it for anything but when we direct. And I would just send packages off weekly, and it was whatever Jeff asked for. And I believe it was either the second or third package. He said, okay, I need to see the world map. And that's what you're seeing here. And then some of the later ones, there were bits and pieces that went in later packages.
Oh, this is going to be so exciting, everyone. I'm telling you, I'm excited to share all this. Ed sent me some PDFs, and what I did was I converted them to JPEG so we can blow them up as much as possible. And I have to apologize because I don't know where some of these locations are, but I'm going to, I guess we should just go in date order would be the best way. And I know in between all this, Anna and Alyssa will be asking you questions. I'll be asking you some questions, maybe the audience, and we'll see, if we run a little late, so be it on this one. I have a feeling this is going to be a top one tonight. So, Ed, when did you, I see there's a map in here from 69. So when did this whole creative process start? For the realms?
It started in 1965. I am a little kid. I am writing stories, and they concern Mert the Moneylender. And Mert is a copy of Falstaff, Shakespeare's Falstaff, combined with Guy Gilpatrick's drunken Scottish engineer Glencannon, combined with Poul Anderson's Nicholas Van Ryn from the Pulsotechnic League stories. So he's this fat, wheezing old man, floppy sea boots, used to be a mercenary captain years and years ago when he was Mert the Merciless. He can no longer outrun anybody or outfight anybody, so he has to outwit them. And he's not very good at it. So every Mert short story, and I was reading, by then it was Fantastic magazine that had Fritz Leiber's last few Fafhrd and Grey Mouser short stories, and they were episodes in the life of Fafhrd and the Mouser. And so I modeled the episode type of short stories on that. I was just writing it for my own entertainment as a 5-year-old kid, okay? So I'm not trying to get published. I'm not, but Mert would be in a port on a seacoast, and by the end of the story, he'd leave town. One floppy sea boot ahead of the local authorities who were now after him for what he'd done in the story, his trade rivals who were after him for what he'd done in the story, and his new enemies that he'd made in the port who were after him for what he'd done in the story. So he was moving south along a seacoast, and I didn't know that it was called the Sword Coast until the next year, 1966. And so he's hopscotching down the Sword Coast until he reaches Waterdeep, which I named simply by saying, okay, I need a really good natural deep water harbor, because that would create a huge seacoast. So I started by saying Deepwater, and I thought, no, Deepwater sounds like a tidal port in Maine. It doesn't sound fantasy. So I switched them around and came up with Waterdeep. And I thought Waterdeep was this huge crossroads cosmopolitan port city sort of like London back in the day, or Rome, that sort of stuff. So Mert liked it enough; he was going to stay there for a bit. So then I had to start mapping it, and I already had to start mapping the Sword Coast. But when I started writing lots and lots of short stories set in Waterdeep, the City Watch would chase them, or try and pounce on them. The bad guys would sort of try and pounce on Mert, and he'd be wandering around wheeling and dealing. And you can easily write anything, but then after a bit, you want to keep things honest and straight, and then you map it. A friend of mine, Julie Trinata, who is a famous science fiction writer up in Canada, has started writing fantasy stories, and her first few fantasies were set in a little village called Mistledale. And she was a retired scientist. She actually clay modeled the entire village with little buildings, even though it's a tiny little building, just because she said when they're doing scenes at night where people walk out of their cottages and somebody sees somebody else in their backyard, she wants to make sure the sight lines are correct and it's all consistent. So she actually modeled the whole thing. I was vastly impressed. I didn't have time to do modeling, so I just mapped everything. So that's how I started mapping Waterdeep. And the early Realm stories, do you remember the early Lovecraft when he was influenced by Dunsany? So we weren't yet into the mythos. We had these dream, Randolph Carter stories, the dream quest of unknown Kadath, the novel with no chapters and so on. Well, in that novel, he has plenty of scenes where Randolph Carter sees a ship dock and strange-looking merchants who wear turbans that he thinks are hiding horns because of the shape of the turban get out of the ship, and they're selling exotic spices and so on. And there's a toss-off reference saying where they're from, because he asks somebody at the port, who are those guys and where are they from? And he just relates what he's told, and you never hear anything more about it. Well, I was treating the realms at that point in the same way. I was mentioning ships from afar and what cargoes they brought without telling you exactly where it is. And after a while, I'm thinking, okay, I better start mapping this, or I'm, anyway. So that's where that all started.
Sounds like you were just going with the flow back then. You didn't know where it would take you.
Yeah, remember, there's no D&D.
There's no D&D. You're creating almost like Lankmar, or you're creating something like that. Thinking which is really cool. Thieves World, or
I'm writing stories for my own entertainment, not trying to get them published. And the only role-playing game I know of is Kriegspiel, the officers training broken telephone chain of command game that in Napoleonic times the German army was using. And really, I'm only dating it from that because of that name. Apparently the Romans during the Roman Empire did similar training exercises to get their commanders to figure out how to send message riders and keep things straight and find out about the enemy and where to post sentinels and so on. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And that was the only role-playing game I knew about, because the Canadian Army did the same thing. They learned at the feet of the British High Command.
Right.
Was, and they were doing the same thing. You put people in different huts or different rooms to the same mansion, and you literally send an errand runner, and you see if the errand runner screws up the orders and screws up the intel, and then you make decisions and send them back by another errand runner, and we see what the fog of war results and what sort of a mess people get into. And it's all training to be an officer before you're doing it, hopefully, with real people's lives,
Yeah, well, it's unbelievable, how things start, right? And just I learned this too. Never throw anything out. I mean, I got papers all the way back to 78. I got everything. I have everything too, Ed. You really that's it. Then you can go back and reference those items. I saw quite any real world analog Canada and original FR. Any in your thoughts,
only some of the terrain. there's a famous folk song up here, which I will just sing two lines of.
Yeah.
Rocks and trees, trees and rocks. We got a lot of rocks and trees. And what they're talking about is the Canadian Shield Country, which starts just north of Lake Simcoe in Ontario and runs right across, and the Bruce Peninsula is part of it, where the bedrock that was worn down by the glaciers is exposed, and there's very poor soil, and you mainly get pine trees, lots and lots of pine trees. And people have cottages there, and they're small settlements, but nobody could make a farm work on that poor soil. So it largely didn't get settled. So bits and pieces of that. And Canada, if you drive across all of Canada, you get to see every sort of terrain. We even have deserts. We just don't have hot deserts.
Right.
You get everything. So everywhere I've been, and increasingly as I got older, I saw more and more of the world with my own eyes, as opposed to sitting watching a film strip. Because in those days, it was film strips, kids. There were only 3 channels on TV. Oh, 5, because Canada had a cable channel and the national channel. And then there were 3 American networks. Just 3, folks, no more. And you got to see whatever National Geographic put on, and that was the only time you got to see the rest of the world. Unless somebody was killing somebody or there was a sports event.
Yep. So we'll take one more question from the audience. Rick Fowler says, how'd you learn about Kriegspiel? Were you in the Canadian Armed Forces?
No, never. But my father was a radar technician for NATO NORAD in the early days, and he served in the Canadian Forces with NATO. And lying around the house were a whole bunch of top secret burn before reading documents. I remember that because I wanted to take them to school for show and tell, and he said, no, son. But for my American friends, I will tell you that they had paper 9x12 file folders, just like kids would carry in school, except these had a cartoon drawing of an American eagle with one talon on the North Pole and the other talon clutching 3 lightning bolts. And it was all about stopping Russian bombers coming over the pole to bomb. And it actually said across it, top secret, burn before reading. The joke
before reading, that's
the joke being, if you saw this folder, just destroy it. Don't even open it. Just destroy it. Because it only got that folder put around it to conceal the papers from prying eyes when they came out of a dispatch case and were being carried along a corridor somewhere. Now, everybody kept stuff at home because security in those days, I mean, I remember going into one of my father's offices and they had that cute little sign on the wall, security's a thumb and a blanket. You know.
It was also much tougher to steal secrets back then.
Yes, true.
Than it is today. So yeah.
Yeah, no digital. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. I've teased you enough, everyone. So let's hit up. These subs just keep on coming. Thank you, Canadian Damn Weirdo, everyone. Wow, thank you so very much.
This is
so
crazy.
I'm going to go in date order of these because I don't know how else to go, and then we can just talk and ask questions in them and all. So Waterdeep, this map, Anna, where do you see this? This is the first, Alyssa. This is the first map that I have. It's from 1969, and it's got a feel to it, and it's got detail on it, and it's just let's just go here. Why don't we? Am I going to hit the wrong button? I did hit the wrong button. I went to the wrong screen. Remember, I got all these different screens now. Yeah. There we go. All right. Here is a little a piece of Waterdeep. So Ed, what are we looking at here?
Okay, so that the enclosed bit with trees and lawns is the City of the Dead, which is the cemetery.
Okay.
And it is also the closest thing that Waterdeep has to a park. And around it, because you can during the night you don't go in there because it's haunted and the gates are locked. But by the city watch. But during the day, that's where you go to stroll to chat, to take the air, and maybe have a picnic lunch, which may or may not be at lunchtime. And that 163 you see there is the entrance to the Dungeon of the Crypt, which is in a crypt. You have to lift the lid of the sarcophagus, and underneath the shroud and the bones is a staircase going down. And these are streets in Tradesward, and
Jay, can you zoom in? Can you zoom in? Actually, on the park area, the City of the Dead. I want to see the edges of the paths there.
Okay. Down to
so, Ed, how do you draw this? So you've stippled it. You've stippled it with an ink pen.
Yes, no one has pointillism. And I was drawing all of these maps with a Staedtler pen, an ink pen, a Staedtler pen using Pelican ink. And you do that just by touching the point of the pen straight down on the paper and pulling it back in a hurry. Because if you're using cheap, crappy paper, and I was using Bond typing paper just because I could get reams and reams of it for free by reaching underneath my father's typewriter, but the ink will continue to expand and bleed out all over which is why when Jay blows it up like this, you can see how imprecise the edges are. The ink has bled into the paper. So drawing is timing. And there's one other interesting thing about this map. Jay, can you scroll up to show us more of that top building? Okay, so say one of these rectangular buildings in frame, any one of those 4 large rectangles. The map is the scale it is, because in those days, there were 3 sorts of figurines you could get. 54 millimeter plastic army men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very expensive Britons.
Napoleonics.
Yeah, and then really cheap yellow waxy plastic 187 scale or 1/72 scale. It was actually 00 gauge 188 scale because they were British Airfix figurines, which came in little boxes and cost 60 cents Canadian in those days.
Okay.
And you got about 40-50 figurines. And
that's right.
The base, the rectangular base of a standard Airfix figurine would fit exactly in that building. So I could say the watch patrol is in here, or the party is in here, as I moved the figures around the map. So that determined my map scale. That's all.
Okay, well, that's wow. That's a great story line on that too. I would have never known that. Like I said, I'm 2 years old at this time.
Oh, okay.
So I'm 9 years away from getting into my D&D fix in 78. This is 69, but wow. I mean, just the level of, it's got that city feel to it right off the bat. You're writing this up. I'm assuming you're filling in these numbers after the fact, or are these during this era when, or is this?
This is a photocopy,
right?
Not the original,
right?
And this photocopy has gotten damp in the basement, so some of the stuff has bled a little bit.
Yeah, I can see.
And the reason why you see numbering like this is I used photocopies to number different things at different times.
Yeah.
So if a player got a hold of this, they couldn't do the old, we'll just go to the buildings that have numbers on them because he hasn't detailed the rest.
Yeah.
Nope. They knew they couldn't trust those numbers because I'd be using different versions of the map at different times in case they got their eyeballs on it.
Wow.
Smart. Yeah.
So this is the oldest one that I have in the list is 69. So, and this is Waterdeep. And like I said, I mean, it's impressive for back then. I did not ever see
it. It's beyond impressive. I mean, honestly, I was looking at those trees and bushes.
Yeah.
And that's how I draw my trees and bushes today. So I'm sitting here thinking, I've picked this style up from Ed Greenwood. I mean, I must have. I must have seen a map from Ed at some point, or a map influenced by Ed, and gone, that's how I'm going to draw trees. And you look at, I mean, maybe later on we'll take a look at Wamptham, or even take a look at Krakenheim.
Oh my gosh.
And you are going to see today I draw my trees like this from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
so something here, either this map or something iterated from it, has influenced how I now draw mine.
There you go. We'll go down here for a second. There you go. Look.
It's exactly it's the same. I do a little bit of extra flourish. It's the same style. Like, go up into the big forested area. It's the same.
Yep. Yeah. And there are some maps, I haven't sent you any of them, but there are some maps in which I start doing shadow in the trees so that they seem to pop like that. But because
Greenwood taught me how to map. And I just found that out 30 seconds ago.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't figured that out in nearly 60
That
years.
is so awesome. Wow.
I still haven't mastered it.
And there's a pond there just above the 163 is a shallow ornamental pond. And I had to figure out some way of showing that it was water.
These wavy lines around that. That's awesome.
Without, it doesn't have a flow. A spring rises there, but it doesn't otherwise have a flow. A river is easy because you can put the flow marks in.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can even, if you want to cheat, you can put tiny arrowheads on some of the flow marks to tell somebody flow is this way. But that was Waterdeep, and I started mapping that purely for story reasons. Now, the other thing I should tell you is what I sent you was a photocopy of an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper for when I had to send that to TSR.
Understood.
The original maps were sheets 11 by 17 because that was the largest paper my father had lying around. And I put 11 by 17. I think Waterdeep is 87 of those sheets.
What? Hold on, what?
Yeah, did you ever open up the Waterdeep map? It takes up the whole floor of a room.
Yep. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yep. If you open that in that box set, it takes up like this room I'm in here. It takes up most of this room. Yeah. So absolutely.
And the original map is way bigger.
Yeah.
Half of one ward of Waterdeep covers a ping pong table.
I'm going to do the honors. I have the 3rd edition Forgotten Realms setting here. I never ever opened the map before. Now I'm going to do it.
Oh, that's the full world,
sitting
right?
here. Yeah, it's a setting book from 3rd edition Forgotten Realms. I read parts of it, but I've never ever opened the map. It's still originally that little.
You're gonna say cracking noise on there.
Yeah, that gluey thing, so to speak. So
But the city of Waterdeep
is the first time in 25 years or 20 years. So this one I guess is from 2002 or something around there.
Yeah.
So that is number one, and that's just starting things off here. Yep. So Ed, my 72s. Tell me in the order. I got Hlruua.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the whole Forgotten Realms. Absolutely, 3rd edition.
Yeah.
I got Moonshae Master from 72. Yep. It looks like those are the two.
So I have the older versions laying around here somewhere too, but I thought that was cool.
Which one do you want to bring up now? Moonshae Master or Hlruua?
Let's start with Hlruua.
Hlruua, okay.
Hlruua should have.
There you go.
Which I basically sent you because it looks pretty.
Okay.
I got to draw my mountains and I got to draw a large marsh. And by the way, there should be. I don't know if you converted them. Each one has a typed map tags.
Some of them do. Some of them do. Yeah.
Okay.
I converted them. Moonshae has tags, but they're from 86. A different year. Let's see. Westgate and Moonshae have the tags.
Okay.
They're the two.
Okay. So we'll do Moonshaes in a minute. So here is Hlruua, which is a typical country, and because it happens to have lots of mountains around it, I got to go to town on drawing mountains. So here I'm drawing an illustrative map to rather than a topographical map of exactly where the mountains go, and because what I'm trying to do is what you might see in a guild hall's really good map in setting, and what will, when players look at it, they'll go, oh, I want to go there.
What's the Nath?
The Nath is a valley, a region.
Cool. That's cool.
I have two questions for Ed at this point.
Sure.
So Ed, did you just jump in and start drawing mountains, or did you practice off to one side first?
No, I just jumped in and started drawing mountains. I mean, here's the thing. I know how mountains work in real life by looking at tons and tons of maps that my father had. My father had huge color atlases. So I wasn't going to make the mistake of having rivers run uphill and mountains not be in chains unless they were a good reason volcanic or something of the sort, or two tectonic plates shoving against each other. They were going to be in ridges, and I could see how they worked in real life, so I did it that way. But I also did things for story reasons. If I wanted to have a barrier and then a strategic mountain pass or a strategic strait for a story reason, I would put it in. I'd say, yeah, a huge range of mountains.
I guess my other question is, how the hell did you label so neatly?
I know. Look at that handwriting. I mean, it's like
beautiful.
Yeah,
it's perfectly straight, or it's perfectly on an angle. I used to use a ruler when I was a kid, but he hasn't here.
Yeah,
this is just perfect.
I'm just drawing. I'm just hand drawing. I still had eyeballs that worked then, and I still had hands that had some dexterity back then. So, here's the other thing. I was used to writing really tiny because paper was not to be had until my father would bring home unused exam books when he was a professor. Because the professor had to collect all blank examination books at the end of the exam and bring them home, and he was supposed to destroy them. But my father had gone through 2 world wars and a depression, and you never wasted anything.
Yeah.
He'd been brought up by farm families. I was brought up by my Aunt Claire after my mother died, and she literally would say, Eddie, if you throw that away, Mr. Hitler will win the war. and I used to think she was joking. She meant it. It was driven into her. She had to sacrifice the metal fencing around their farm that kept the cows in to the war effort, and they never got it back. Everything was saved. When the old ladies died, we discovered that a thing that we had thought was downstairs in their fruit room that we thought was a cushion, an antimacassar, was all the rubber bands saved up, and they'd rotted and fused together because they were real rubber bands, not plastic.
Yeah.
But they never threw anything away. They've been trained to save rubber, glass, metal, and paper. So paper was very precious. And Aunt Clara used, every time we went to the supermarket, groceries came in brown paper bags. And Aunt Clara would iron them flat, slit open the sides with a giant kitchen cleaver, and then save them, because farmers wrote their accounts on that with those flat pencils. I think they call them carpenter's pencils.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they won't roll, and kids could be left with a bucket of crayons, which were wax crayons in those days, nothing else, and brown paper to draw on. So I had to use paper and make it last. So if I was writing a story, I would write all the way down the side of the page like this. And then I'd say over, and I'd write down the back. Then I'd flip it long ways, and I'd overwrite across myself all the way down and flip it, and then do it again. And then I'd snake things in. So to do that, you have to be able to write really tiny, neat lettering. Otherwise, it turns into a hodgepodge. So, yeah, that was how I wrote in those days.
I noticed in a few places on this, Ed, and this is an incredible just experience. Having you here is just chef's kiss. I noticed in a few places here, you've got a label with your drawing around it. I see it in some of the swamps. I see it in some of the mountains. At what point did you stop drawing and say, I'm going to put a label here, and then continue the drawing around the label?
Well, because the story was leading, and I knew what something was called, or that something had to have a name, and I better coin a name on the spot, one of the two things, I would then put the label right spang where the thing should be. And then I would draw in order not to make it the label unreadable, but otherwise put in as much of the mountain or whatever, and then leave the rest so you could read the label, because the story was first and foremost. We're still not at the era of game mapping And we never did get to Greyhawk style game mapping, because the one thing I hated about the Greyhawk release, the only thing I hated, was the hexes.
Yep.
And it's not so much that you have hexes on the map. I didn't mind that. I really minded when gamers were lazy and they made a river go zig, 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 zag along the edges of a hex.
War game maps were like that.
Yeah. Or they made mountains entirely full of hex. And it was like, that looks so fake. That looks so
Divine Right.
The
Divine Right map was like that.
Yeah. So I wanted my world to look like a world. And yeah, this is basically me just because remember, I'm mapping it to keep things straight where they are. I'm also mapping it to look at it and get ideas.
Yeah.
Because that's, and to, and I know Anna alluded to this, there is a point at which the world starts to generate story ideas by strategic, people are going to want to, in the same way that in the real world, Constantinople, or whatever you're calling it at that moment, it has a strategic importance because of the Bosphorus, because so that's going to be a center over which people are going to fight or try and establish dominance one way or the other. It's just a natural hub or point of interest.
Yeah.
And in the same way, when you're making a fantasy imaginary land, there are going to be things that the large cities are going to develop where trade routes cross, or at the mouth of a river which controls trade from the stuff like that. So I that's why that map looks like that.
Yeah. So when in this process do you start to have like a global outlook, meaning you form it as a planet, or was it already like the size of Earth and you just started to put things in place? Or what was the global vision, or was it just like little bits and pieces that you could puzzle together, or when did that come about?
There was a global vision from the beginning. I knew it was a globe.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, it's slightly larger than Earth.
Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't doing the Barsoom thing where, hey, I could jump for miles, because I wasn't doing the extra gravity thing. But I was thinking to myself, it's probably just slightly bigger than Earth, so I can cram more interesting land masses and island chains onto it. That's the only reason I wanted to do that.
So a couple questions came up in the audience about when did Tolkien, or did Tolkien at all inspire you when you read it? What a couple books, and the general inspiration was that combined with your imagination, or just what would you say?
It was everything. From the age 5, I was reading everything in my father's den.
Okay.
And my father bought and read everything. There was everything from military stuff to radar physics to huge manuals to a Peyton place to
that's awesome.
Owl Hoot she was staked out nude in the sun to die. And wartime paperbacks falling apart. Give one to a friend in uniform. Tons and tons of locked room mysteries, and lots of early fantasy and science fiction, because my father loved fantasy and science fiction. So there was a first edition Lord of the Rings sitting on those shelves, yes. And Tolkien was one of my influences, because Tolkien showed me you could do a complete detailed world with languages. That was Tolkien's contribution to my brain. But I was also reading Edgar Rice Burroughs. I was reading Lord Dunsany for the language, the lyrical fantasy language. I was reading all sorts of ancient romances, Amadis of Gaul and so on. William Morris's novels, Seabury Quinn from early Weird Tales. Then Moorcock was coming along then and starting to get published. Fritz Leiber, then later Roger Zelazny and the Amber books. But so they were all feeding into it. But Tolkien showed us, you can actually do an entire world, and a publisher will sit still and let you do an entire world, rather than just having it in the background.
Okay. And everyone note, we're still in 1972. D&D's not till 74, so we're still pre-D&D. Right?
Yeah.
All right, here you go. Here he comes, the other 72 map I have, and then we also have tags to it, and I'll show that. That's from 86, but Here's a Moonshae map.
Okay, these are the original Moonshae Isles.
Wow.
That TSR replaced with Doug Niles' Albion campaign to make their Moonshae Isles, because Doug Niles had designed a fantasy setting for TSR UK. They were going to have their own setting, and then the decision was made that they'd be in effect reprint only, except for modules. So they suddenly had this setting, orphan setting, and Jeff said, "Do you mind if we replace your Moonshaes with ours?" And I said, "No, not at all. You told me at the beginning this was going to be a kitchen sink world. Go right ahead." Now, my Moonshaes were sort of like the real world Hebrides, in terms of not in terms of climate so much as in terms of geography. And Ursula Le Guin, for the Earthsea books, she did the same thing. She looked at the Hebrides and said, "Yep, that's what I want. Tiny little islets where people go fishing, and only the most intrepid journey from island to island. So most people stay on the island they were born on, or at the very least, they have commerce with the island next door and no further."
Did you have like an ancient story of bigger things, and because the Hebrides and the Shetlands and stuff were part of they were much more in the center of things early on, like before the Viking, like the Bronze Age and early Viking Age and stuff, and then they kind of faded away more in modern times. Was that part of your Moonshae Islands too? Oh
yes, because and that's I think what made that, plus where it was, and it was, you know, archipelago, so they could easily wrench one away and plop another in its place. That is, I think, what made Jeff decide on that, because it's like, oh, I had this sort of ancient magic and old gods, and that was exactly what Doug had been trying for in his own setting. So, oh, easy swap, because it fits, and so in it went. So, and now with this map of the Moonshaes, Jay, do we have the map tags?
Yeah, watch this.
Okay. So the map tags are from 1986.
Yep.
Because I didn't expect anybody at TSR to read my crappy handwriting. So I cranked up my crappy typewriter and I typed map tags in roughly the same place on the page.
You had to move the paper all around then.
Yeah.
To type it. Oh my gosh.
I fed it in and fed it out so that
this is some skill here. Using the typewriter.
Exactly.
I don't see any whiteout.
Exactly. If you use the typewriter, you know how difficult this would be.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, my father had an old Underwood 8. If you ever see an Underwood 8, grab it, because should you need to anchor a car or a small battleship, the Underwood 8, just chain it to the Underwood 8. Don't throw the Underwood 8 anywhere, because its metal is brittle and will shatter. And if you throw it at a car, it will go right through the car.
It's like a cast iron thing.
Yeah.
Ed, is this the one that's about this deep? It's like, it's deep, right?
Yeah, it's deep. And it has a huge wide plating.
I think I carried one of them to Scotland on a train once from my mom. Seriously, it was huge.
It's huge, yeah. But the platen is 20 inches wide, so you can pull the paper out, turn it fully sideways or at any angle, feed it in, and not have the paper crumpled by the typewriter. So that's how you can get that typing. And I did that so that the people at TSR wouldn't misread my handwriting, and apparently they promptly threw those away.
But we have them now, some of them.
Yeah, so this is from the 1986 Realms turnover.
Right.
And that's where the 32 of 55 pages, because half of the pages out of that 50, well, there's one or two of preamble, and there's a assembly guide right at the beginning that I hand drew a grid saying, here's how they all fit together. And then there's each page has its own map guide.
So a question here: were the Moonshaes originally created as Druidic Fae Islands, or were those added later?
They were an abode of the Fae. There were no druids because there's no D&D.
Right. So you don't even know that the D. Yeah, that's exactly right. There's no D&D.
And what I was picturing was that there were elders, and the sort of elders that were hermits who lived in the forest in their own hut or lived in a cave and were more in tune with the Fae, because in order to stay in that abode, they had to get along with the Fae. And in order to survive in the woods, they had to know the natural ways. So what later ignorant British cultural people would call witches, they would just, the wise woman, the local wise woman. And what later people would call hedge wizards, meaning not the guy who can blow you away and has a mighty staff, but the guy who can make your sick cat better. Or you bring him your beautiful wooden ladle that was your granny's, and it's broken in two, and he fixes it. He mends it magically in front of your eyes and hands it back to you. And you pay him whatever you can, usually food. So he gets a meal out of it, and he's perfectly happy, and you're perfectly happy. That's what I had. I didn't have full-on druids, because druids to me felt like real world.
Right, because they were real. They were called, there were druids. They got slaughtered by the Romans for the most part, right?
Yeah.
This is before someone created that class. We're still 2 years, and there's only going to be base classes in 74. What, 3 classes? No thieves yet.
Druid.
No thieves.
No thieves. Yeah. There's 3 classes in 74.
Yep.
So, we're not anywhere near druids here. So, wow. Yeah. All right. So Moonshaes end up something completely different than this.
Wow.
So
you're seeing the original Moonshaes for the first time since Jeff looked at them. Alex's map on his ceiling has Doug's map taped over this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is some impressive stuff there, Ed. You're sharing this with us. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Let me see. I have 1 or 2 other questions in this area. Your naming conventions are? How are you coming up with all these names?
Oh boy. Okay. Names come easily to me.
Okay.
They just come into my head. And once they do, I say, does this fit? And to paraphrase Lynn Carter's classic work, Imaginary Worlds, in which he has an entire chapter about the naming of names. And he says, picture Stonehenge. You all know what Stonehenge looks like. Now, take the name Piccadilly and slap it on Stonehenge. Doesn't fit, because Piccadilly's this little bouncy word, but Stonehenge, those words have weight and meaning. Okay, so I'm seeing if that name fits, or whether I should just write the name down and save it. Then I'm thinking, when I write it down, that's where convention for the realms comes in. Certain languages in the realms will have things like that AE that you see in Moonshaes.
Yep.
Okay, and you repeat vowel strings, not just the vowel itself, but the letters or the consonants around it that shape the vowel sound. You use them often in a particular area, and you think, okay, that's the local tongue of whoever's there, and then here's what and then you write it out, and you think, is that pronounceable, or do I need to have a pronunciation guide? Is somebody going to mispronounce that when you look at it? Now, this is a bit tricky, because
so you were thinking about publishing and other people reading the stories even early on back then, or like in the 70s?
That's growing, because I'm typing everything up and I'm handing them to my father, and my father is taking them into his work and passing them around. And it was quite funny, because at the age of 5, I was writing a James Bond knockoff, but it was a science fictional James Bond knockoff. So
nice.
I fired my blaster, and the speedster fell out of the sky, roaring past me to crash into, and one of the guys says, "Hey, this is pretty good, Bob. Can we have a sex scene next?" And my dad says, "He's 5." and the guy says, "Well, it's never too young to start with a field research." And then somebody else says,
"Wow."
and then somebody says the tombstone research, the back of the seat car, because it was the 60s, and men were chauvinist pigs.
Holy jeez!
And there were no women in the room to hear it because the women were in the room outside, the office room, and he wasn't thinking that anybody would ever. So he shared it with me. All the men, by the way, are dead of old age now, including my dad. So I'm not vilifying anybody's memory by recounting that. But yeah, it was stuff like that. So I had started to realize the other people might read this. So I've got to get these things straight.
Yeah.
And the last thing, and here's something I would do now that I couldn't do then. If you do it now, take your word and type it into Google and see if somebody's already used it for the name of a sanitary napkin in Poland.
Yeah.
Or that it means something rude in another language, like black hole. American astronomers call black holes. In Russia, they call them hairy stars because a black hole in Russia means your anus. So you don't use it in astronomy. And there are lots of tiny little pitfalls like that. I mean, some of them
ways than one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now, I was pretty good at that just because I'd read so many books.
Yeah.
You know, so I come across a lot of words and names.
Good point. I never even thought about that.
I could have taken so much advice off Ed when I was labeling my maps when I was a teenager, because I used to look around my bedroom. That was my inspiration, Ed, because I wasn't as well read as you, okay? And I wasn't a savant. So I'm looking around my bedroom at just like labels on things and like I'm labeling and I see a candle in my room. So I'm like, candle fields. And I'm like, candle fields? What does that even mean? It's cool. It's like you clearly had a plan. You knew what you were doing. And yeah, you could have taught me so much.
Still can. Yeah.
It sounds so grand when you say it that way. I was just making it up as I went along.
But you made it up better. You did good. You did good. It was fantastic.
Yep.
So,
Jay, let's do another one.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to 76. So I'm 9 at this time. All right. The detail on these is going to shock you a bit, especially with like the thicker walls. Alyssa and Anna, where do you see this? This is an original for the Lonesome Tankard, right? Yes, wrong button. I'm so used to the other one set up. Give me 10 seconds, 5 seconds. There we go.
Close up of everyone seeing me take a drink.
Yes. All right, here's a Lonesome.
This is made in 1970. What was this?
1976.
1976.
This is if this was turned in today on any publication, any publisher would be happy with this.
Accepted, more than accepted.
Honestly, just about 6 years ago, I gave something to Golden Goblin that looked a little bit like this, and I was drawing digitally. This is fantastic.
Okay, here I'm cheating. I am, in fact, using graph paper.
Well, graph paper's around. Yes. Yeah, that's
you
okay.
imposter.
Yes.
You imposter.
You can see that they do cut out some pieces and put on top here and there. So yeah,
that's okay.
Zoom in, Jay. Zoom in.
All right,
so what you do is you take your Stadler pen and you draw over all the lines on the graph paper. And here I am cheating because I am using a straight edge provided by Stadler, but the problem with Stadler straight edges is they're just pieces of plastic. So the ink bleeds right underneath them. So the only way to use them, because in those days, the only elegant rulers you could get were these whippy metal ones that were mainly used by bondage and disciplined people, which had cork glued along the bottom to lift the straight edge off the page. And you didn't dare use them on a Stadler because they cut right through the wire of the Stadler pen and destroy your pen. So I couldn't use those. So instead, I improvised my own by taping 2 plastic see-through Stadler cheapy rulers together, offset, so that one of them was the raised edge and one of them was the underneath. So I could then rule over the graph paper, and I'm using all the conventions that we later used. And by the way, what you see there is I have cut out later on. So that's added to this map later. So this bit of the map, you see those chairs and tables?
Yeah.
They are cutouts from a TSR map pack. I know I sent you a storyboard sheet, which we'll probably get to later.
Yes.
Okay.
Landfan 79, that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one that has. Yeah, the one that. Yeah.
Oh, Volo storyboard. The Volo storyboard.
That's it.
That says 92 on it.
Oh, okay. So that I cut them out of my first TSR map pack, which I was sent to do the Endless Stair with, and I've taped them on top of this. You can see right through them.
Yeah.
You can see the lines right through them. So they're later additions.
Okay.
Whereas the other ones I have hand drawn myself.
Yeah, you can see these are hand drawn here.
Yeah, and this is the Lonesome Tankard Inn in Evening Star.
Okay.
And it was the home base for the players' party when they were exploring the haunted halls and then exploring up into the Stonelands. So they were going to reuse this over and over again. This was home for them. So because they were going to have a lycanthrope on the loose in the village and Zentrum agents spying on them, I went whole hog on this and designed all of its levels and its cellars and everything because somebody could be sneaking up on them.
And where did these symbols come from? Now, had some of these symbols been established at this point? Lofty era of 70 odd, whatever it was.
This is 76. This is 2 years after the original D&D comes out, right?
Yeah, a lot of these mapping symbols weren't invented by TSR or D&D. Some of them were refined, like the Secret Door S there. But a lot of these earlier ones, there was a gentleman in England called Donald Featherstone. He's dead now.
I love Donald Featherstone. I was a war gamer. I had his books.
Okay. He and I and Andy Offit were actually guests of honor at a Milwaukee era Gen Con.
You met Donald Featherstone.
Oh, yeah.
I've got the vapors.
He was a great man. And okay, I've got to tell you just this one Donald Featherstone story.
Yes.
Very quickly. Gen Con, there's a war college. You know, the war college used to attend every Gen Con and talk about military history. And there was some nit from the war college going on about the Second World War, Western Desert, and outflanking and why tanks did this. And Donald Featherstone was sitting quietly in the audience, and he stood up and walked to the aisle of the audience and said, "Excuse me, but you're wrong." And the guy said, "Well, excuse me, sir. I have a doctorate in this, and it's on top of 2 masters, and you know, this is my area of expertise." And Donald Featherstone said, "Well, that's very nice for you, but I was driving that tank, so." It was such a gentle put down. It was so British. I loved it so much. It was like one of those bang. Gotcha. You know, but he didn't gloat. He didn't pile in. He just quietly said, "Yeah, but I was driving that tank. And I can tell you we turned because we couldn't see because the wind came up and it blew up the sand into dust and we couldn't see. And we thought we were sitting ducks. So we turned." You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Nice.
Awesome. That's a great story.
But anyway, Donald Featherstone had established, and I don't think he made them up. I think he borrowed them from British officers of the day, some of those symbols, and some of them were architectural building symbols. I'd seen them elsewhere. Yeah. My father had an extensive collection of popular mechanics, popular science, National Geographic, Scientific American, Life magazine. In fact, by the way, Jay, if you find the right issues of early Life magazines, you will find little 1-page war games of American Civil War with hexes published in Life magazine.
Wow.
And they're things like the Shenandoah Valley, or, you know, the push for the sea and all that stuff. They just capture them.
They were his?
No, they weren't his, but they were in Life magazine.
Okay, they were in Life magazine. Okay.
These symbols were appearing in public.
Okay.
Now this bit here,
I like this where you say,
yeah, well, that I drew myself. I just said, how can I show that? Oh, I'll show it like this.
Right. You know, the elevation up that's above the other one.
Yeah,
that's really cool. All right, so that is 1976 we're at. So let me see if we had a question or two out here. I saw that one. So all right, so this is 76 D&D. Are you involved at all? Are you playing? Do you know about it?
Okay. If you didn't go to college in Wisconsin, you didn't know. Yeah. You didn't know about D&D in '74. Right. You didn't know about it until 1975, when Gary was slipping Pete cases of beer, to stick a box of stuff underneath his seat when he drove. Pete's Freight would drive from several places, including Lake Geneva, to General Mitchell Field in Milwaukee, and shipping off stuff to hobby stores from there. So he was shipping other things at General Mitchell Field, but Gary would give him some beer in return for sticking one box under the driver's seat of his truck and taking it there and mailing it with it, you know. And so 75 brick and mortar hobby stores around North America, mainly in the United States. I'm up in Canada, so I don't get to see them until Mr. Gameboy Sark carries it in Toronto. So 1975, D&D is beginning to get out. And I got the original 3 booklets. And my friends and I sat down and we read through them. We said, this is wonderful. This is really cool. And boy, is the execution shitty. We're just going to argue about what happens at the table. Forget it. But it was fun. Okay. And then when Greyhawk appeared, the booklet,
80,
we said, so beholders, blast puppies, all those magic items, and the thief class, and mind flayers, and so on, come into the game. We go, oh, wait, this is really cool. But we still don't play it until the monster manual appears. And then is capped by the player's handbook. So that's 1978.
Yeah.
And then we go, okay, all the monsters from mythology ranked together. I'm going to convert the realms to match this because it keeps my stories honest. This is going to be the backbone, the skeleton, the armature of my stories, even though we're not playing the game and we're not, it's going to, in the same way that Don Pendleton would work out gunfights for the Executioner series by actually mapping and saying, okay, he'd have to reload here because otherwise I have gunfights in which the guy fires 86 times without reloading. So I've got to plan things out. So I was doing that. These are really cool. This is how monster, and then in came the player's handbook on top of that. And it was like Jack Vance's magic system. Perfect. Okay, this is it. Magic in the realms now follows this because we know exactly what spells do and what their limitations are and how they go together. Now, the one thing that the game has never codified, because we just don't have time, word count, and paper, and because it really should be left to the Dungeon Master to happen at the table, is what happens when 2 or 3 spells collide. The game has never codified that, and in some ways, I hope it never does.
Well, yeah. I mean, when an ice storm goes off with a fireball in the same effect, I mean, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
But those two put together was like, oh, okay. And we started playing D&D regularly then, and never stopped. 1978, we stopped playing sporadically and started playing regularly, intensely, and we were all waiting for the Dungeon Master's Guide. And you might remember that issue 21 of Dragon Magazine, which is also combined with Little Wars, Gary was so busy trying to write Greyhawk stuff, trying to be executive of a company that was mushrooming in size, and trying to expand D&D's rules, that he couldn't produce stuff fast enough. So he apologized to all the gamers and put the combat tables from the Dungeon Master's Guide in that issue to tide you Dungeon Masters over until I can get the Dungeon Master's Guide finished.
That's true.
And we were all waiting for it.
Yeah.
So by then we're playing in the realms D&D, and it's never stopped.
So you didn't do Holmes Basic at all?
Oh, we read it.
Okay.
But
it was only up to third level, so it was like,
yeah. The one thing we didn't like, the only thing we didn't like about the Holmes Basic was all the dungeons provided to you in the Basic were geomorphs.
Yeah.
Which started to train people to think every square inch is used. So
hex paper, use it all.
Yeah. If we haven't gotten into this area, there must be a secret door. Just keep searching because we got to get into that area.
That's true.
I didn't like that at all because I thought that's totally unrealistic, which is why the realms had so many mini dungeons. And the mini dungeon was literally some guy's tomb. And it would have like 3 chambers because it's a lot of work to dig a tomb.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of rough-hewn drawings back then either. It was all square. You know, so good point.
Yep.
I know Big Mac asked a question, and I think it has to do with Spelljammer. Has ever made maps of Saloon or the Tiers of Saloon or Constellations of Stars?
Yes, to all of those. And they are NDA'd because they were all handed into TSR. Remember, I was the first freelance designer to work on Spelljammer. Jeff phoned me and said, okay. And I did Lost Ships. And he actually, I turned over a monster called Space Grubs with 2 B's, just like his last name. And he says, he said, lose these or die. He and sent it back. But yeah, we did all that. But you see, if you wrote something for TSR on the company's dime, they own it.
Right.
So when I send it in, and they never used them, so they've been deep sixed.
So all this stuff is all your personal that we're showing tonight. So we're that's just great. So
any chance of revamping a new version of them somehow?
Oh, sure.
Well, remember Ed released. Ed did some that Fae thing was on your own, right? Just the recent one.
It was because Alex was paying for it and buying the art and helming it, and I was just having fun writing it.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah. You see what Alex wants to do? He wants to do really cool adventures. And he does them. So he writes the adventure. And Alan Patrick's sweet spot is writing character classes and cool new powers and skills and so on. And I just want to show you the world. I like to build worlds. So we all take our little corner.
Yep. That is so cool.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Here we go. We're going to go next to 1979, I believe. We got 2. We'll go to this one first. There we go. This is Lantan. All right, and this has got some a look at Lantan here.
Okay, so the look at is from the 1986 turnover of the realms.
All right, so this part 79, and this is added for in 86. Is what you're saying.
Okay. I literally what I did was take my map and photocopy it, and then scroll that piece of paper into the typewriter and type around it.
Okay.
So I was preserving my original map by just using a photocopy of it, and then I just typed around it because I had to tell Jeff and Karen, Karen Boomgarden at TSR, this is what Lantan is. So these little detail maps, this is a sort of map that if you went to a map shop on port, this is what they'd sell you.
So it goes that way.
Yep.
Cool.
This was InDesign back in the 70s, kid.
Exactly. This is analog InDesign before Adobe. This is awesome.
So all right. So Lantan's kind of reminds me of Lender Isle a little bit in the design there a little bit, Anna. Just a little bit. So as far as off, but it's off to the west of the Sword Coast, where Lender was to the east of the Great Kingdom area. So cool. The Sandbar Run, very neat. And this is human inhabitants here.
Okay. Yeah. Lantan is where. There are many gnomes in Lantan as well as humans, and this is where the people who worship Gond work. So there's lots of inventions here.
Oh, nice tinkering and stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Pre-Dragonlance too.
Of course.
Oh yeah, Dragonlance is much later. Yeah.
Yes, pre-Dragonlance. Nice. All right, and then from 79 here, this is a big one. This is a town that everyone knows this town, or they should, and that's Shadowdale. right? Part of it?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so this is a player's map.
Okay.
So it's really simplified, and I mockingly call this the central business district of Shadowdale, because and we should see later, because I think I sent you one Shadowdale map. The Shadowdale map, the bigger one, has 6 panels, and I think I sent you the central panel, because the other panels are basically woods and farms.
I don't know if I have another Shadowdale one here.
Scornubel,
Suzail, Voonlar,
anyway, this
Westgate,
is gorgeous.
Miss Drannor.
It's so
Mistledale.
simple and still just simply gorgeous.
Let me just double check.
Yeah. So this simple map is what people. I could hand this to the players with no writing on it. After they'd spent 2 or 3 hours wandering around.
Sure I got the same one. Okay.
And then I would hand them this with the lettering after they'd spent an evening in the Old Skull Inn. There's the Old Skull Inn, right where the main T intersection is in the center. The Old Skull Inn is right there. And after they'd spent an evening talking in the tap room there, they'd know who lived in all of these things.
Yeah.
So that's a player's map. It's not strictly to scale. It's not strictly detailed.
Look at this. There's a tower here.
Yes, Elminster's Tower. Elminster's Tower and his pool.
Oh, that's the pool and the Drow the Underdark.
Yes. Yes. And it's also where when lovely Drow lady, where Elminster and Leo bathe and wash their clothes.
Potato Sauce, thank you so very much for the raid. We got the legendary Ed Greenwood on. We're going over original maps going all the way back to 1969 for Forgotten Realms, before it was even Forgotten Realms and TSR. So please hang out with Ed Greenwood and us. We got multiple giveaways, and we really appreciate the raid in, Potato. It's good to see you, and I know you got a real great following, and nice to meet you. I'm Jay.
Someone in the chat said, "Please tell me this is just part 1 of 4." This is how popular it is right now.
That's a good one.
They are loving this. Ed, this is so awesome.
So we have Alyssa Faden and Anna Meyer, great map makers in their own right, and Ed is going over some wonderful, wonderful stuff. Please feel free to hang out. Exclamation point drawing. We had 2 $25 gift certificates from our great sponsor for this show, Frog God Games. Exclamation point drawing, and we'll give away 2 of them tonight. And so, all right, so there's Elminster's Tower right here, and we got the legendary Old Skull Inn, Wergen the Trader, any of these other names that are huge in the world that people will just know, Ed, right off the bat.
I just need to ask something, and I'm a complete idiot when it comes to Forgotten Realms. So I just need. I remember there was a computer game called the Pool of Radiance. Does that have anything to do with that little pool?
It came along later, and Pool of Radiance actually concerns just north of Shadowdale. There's the Moonsea, and Pool of Radiance is actually set in some of the cities on the north shore of the Moonsea.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yep.
It was a real pain in the ass game, but I couldn't stop playing it.
That was one of the first gold box. I
think I had the game, but I never really suffered through it. So
it would be like step encounter, big huge fight lasts hours. Step encounter, big huge fight lasts hours. Pain in the ass, but the story behind the city was awesome.
Jay, how far does that map go at the bottom?
Down to Smokehouse.
Okay, so it cuts off Salune's hut.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Salune. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it would have been just the. Okay, never mind. So this is the player's map that they would get.
This is from 1979. This map, everyone. So just note the date on this one. Wow. All right. So you're still.
And again, I mean, just from a presentation and an artistic perspective. You could put this in so many publications today.
Oh, yeah.
And people would be happy with it. I have seen way inferior maps in publication today with bigger publishers. So this is really, really nice.
I mean, meaning that they're probably very few of TSR's publication that came up to this standard. Most of them were inferior to this, which is, to me, kind of, I don't understand why the heck they just didn't publish. They should just have cleaned this up just a little bit and
roll with it, right?
And used it. Why did they redo it in a worse form often?
I have no idea, but there is one occasion. If you have this book for the second edition, all the city maps that are dotted all the way through this, these are all my original maps. All they've added is the blue and the compass roses. They otherwise just photocopied or photo offset my original maps because they didn't have time to redo all the maps for the very good reason that it had taken me a month of intensive drawing with my Stadler pen to create those cities in a heck of a hurry for them. And production needed it right now.
but the cool thing is that your style, original style, it can be seen through Forgotten Realms map to this day, which is so cool that it's kind of, you can clearly see that whoever did, and there's probably been lots of different artists and cartographers who worked on it over the decades, because we're talking like 40 years here. But you can still see some of that original vision and style that you had, Ed, and that is, this is amazing. Thank you.
So we're having a lot of fun here, and we're an hour and 7 minutes in. And if we run late, we run late. If we're able to hang out a little bit, but Ed and all. If not, we can always come back to do more. But so we're only in 79 so far. So at this point, Ed, you have most of the books, some monster manuals out, but you're still not playing AD&D yet. That's probably 80 or 81, correct? You're still, or is it right there? You're doing a little bit of it at this point.
Yeah, because we're using the monster manual and the player's handbook, so that's AD&D.
Okay,
and that's 79. Yeah, 1979. So we're playing regularly, and the Company of Crazed Venturers is adventuring in Undermountain, underneath Waterdeep, Undermountain and Dungeon of the Crypt.
Right,
and they are about to scatter, and we're about to start the Swords of Evening Star, who became the Knights of Drannor and moved to Shadowdale. So I'm preparing Shadowdale before they get there.
Cool. So just awesome stuff, Ed. And but we're still, I don't know if we're even halfway yet. So I think I think next is 81. I think we have one from 81. Yeah. No, two. All right. Mistledale or Serpent's Cowl first, Ed. You tell me.
Oh, okay. Let's do Mistledale first.
Okay. Oh, look at this. This is a little bit higher view. I almost hit a wrong button there, everyone. Almost. But I didn't. I stopped myself. Here's Mistledale. It says Ashabinford up top. Ashabinford. Okay.
The river Ashaba is running through the middle.
Oh, okay.
And this originally, where the bridge is, right here, had been a ford. So the old name in the center of Mistledale for the settlement was Ashabinford. It is the settlement in Mistledale. Now, this map, and you could see here how I'm doing topographical map style. With each individual building drawn. The dotted lines are tracks. Everything else is paved, sort of. And by paved, sort of, the main road would have been cobbles with mud and gravel over it, and the side roads would have been corduroy. And if you pull back and show us the map small, this is this is the central business district, and the little thing down the bottom right, the little legend, is from the 1986 turnover.
Right. When you submitted everything,
you can see the photocopy lines where I've taped that on top of the map and the photocopy.
Yep, you can see it.
Yeah. Now, that panel that you're looking at, that 8.5 by 11, is one of 8 panels from Mistledale.
Okay.
Because I just follow the road all the way along and put all the farms in, so I know who runs each farm as a dungeon master, and I have an overlay that tells me that. But the players are going to have to discover it as they adventure. And also, this little track that runs up along the river.
Right. Oh, this one?
Yeah, but if you go north to the top of the map and keep following there, you can actually go all the way through the woods and fall on the banks of the River Ashava and end up in Shadowdale on that map.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right.
And it was this detailed because Mistledale is one of the dales in which battles occur. And the Zents, the Zhentarim in Zendel Keep, are trying to take over the dales. So we actually role-played battles in which Mistledale was defended and Shadowdale was defended by the locals, the militia, aided and abetted by adventurers and aided and abetted by forces from Cormyr and from Sembia, because they didn't want the Zhentarim to take over. So they were like bolstering the local defenses. But oh yeah, and I think we have a city dump there in the corner.
Yeah, you do. It's just a dump.
Yep. Because that's what you did with your stuff in the old days. You dumped it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Dales is the Dale lands, right?
Yep. Yeah. So Mistledale is directly south of Shadowdale, and it's a major east-west trade route, runs right through the center of it. And it's a it's a verdant farming dale.
Yes, lots of farmlands here.
But the DM's map is 8 panels, and this is just the central panel. There are panels north and south of it, 1 each, and then the rest are strung out to right to the ends of the dale.
That's a lot of. It's just this is, gosh, I'm not making any equivalency. This is what happens with 40, 50 years of accumulation of doing things and continuing to do and continuing to build and build and build, and then you end up with a massive campaign, right? And that's, you know, like I said, I'm not comparing myself to Ed, but what I'm saying is that when Ed says he's got the longest campaign, we're talking about 69 now. That, you know, this was all kind of started, or 65 or whenever. I mean, that's just when you put that in perspective. How long that is. It's longer than I've been alive. So it's insane.
I'll just go into my corner.
All right, Serpent's Cowl.
Okay,
1981 still.
So this one has never been published by TSR. And I mean, Serpent's Cowl has appeared on the maps, but they've never ever published this map. And the reason I included it was to show you how you do a small village.
Okay.
So it's here. I just wrote the key down the side rather than on a separate thing, because the place was small enough and simple enough that I could, as far as I was concerned, dispose of it for play in a 1-sheet. So here we are.
Roommates.
Yep.
That's awesome. The Dusty Dragon.
Yep.
Oh.
7th level fighter, human. Yeah. So there, got some stats. Got some D&D stats there.
Yeah. Temporal Lion Fang.
You said how you do a small village. So tell us about this. What makes this a small village? Just in layout, composition. What makes this a small village?
Just by how many people live there and how important it is to its hinterland, as in, does it have any dominance around it? And the answer to that is basically no. It's where local people live and subsistence farm, and trade comes through on the road, and a lot of the stuff like the inn is, you know, tied to the trade, and they get news from the wider world, and they get trinkets and stuff. Nobody makes little metal things they buy them all from passing merchants, and the passing merchants get food from them and maybe whittled goods and stuff like that. So I just meant in the way of how many people live there, how important it is, and how I'm mapping it. This is a small village as opposed to a town. I'm not strictly using the British system of, you know, it's not a city unless it has a cathedral, you know, sort of thing. And I'm not going Thorpe, you know.
This
this
is Hamlet sized.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no.
But he even mentions there, though, it's like the tavern is on the road and there's trade that comes through, and he's hitting all of the buttons there. That's what makes this a village.
There is a shrine to Tyche here.
Yeah. Tyche, yeah.
Tyche, I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Nike Tyche, yeah.
Tyche, who is a real Finnish goddess, and there's a lumber yard, and There's a local magic user, and there's local warehouses, storage barns, and what they're mainly used for storage is local farm produce, so it can be sold. And there's a smithy, and it's also the local market. The farmers meet there, hence the market square. So you have to figure out, why is this settlement here? And it's here because two roads meet at a river bridge, and one of them is a trade road, an important trade road.
Where is this placed in the world?
So if you look inland of the Sword Coast, the River Chionthar.
Is it on this map? Is it on this map? I know this one's fuzzy.
Yeah, let's have a look. I know here.
This one's really fuzzy. I apologize, but that's the best I had.
Go north on there. Yeah. North from where you are.
That's as far north as I can go.
Okay, so
it's really fuzzy.
We're right top edge of the map.
Up here?
There. Yeah, right where you're.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's in there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Awesome.
Yep. And as I said, Serpent's Cowl has never been mapped like this in publication. This is the original map. It's part of the 1986 turnover. And I included it to say, look, I have places of this size mapped if you need them. And this was there was a hidden evil here for them to find, and I was subtle like a brick. Serpent's Cowl, its name has a little hint.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. And that's so awesome. All right, so so we're seeing stuff tonight that no one's ever seen before outside of your game.
Yep,
outside of your group, which is really really very kind of you to do.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah. All right, so this is 81. We're going to go now. We're going year by year next. In 82, we have the Volo story. No, that's not 82. We have Voonlar.
Was there another 81 map? Is that the other?
We had Mistledale and we had Serpent's Cowl. There were the two. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's do 82 Voonlar. Voonlar. Okay.
Okay. So if you go east out of Shadowdale, the road then swings north, and the next place you run into is Voonlar. Okay. And Voonlar was taken over by the Zents during our campaign. They conquered it and took it, and there was a huge fight. And this is also where one of the Seven Sisters was rescued at the Whistling Wizard Inn by Florin. And there's the Whistling Wizard right at the bottom on the road.
Which sister?
Thing. And there's a local adventuring group called the Hand, and there's their place, the Hand Strong.
See, now that's cool. I like that.
Nice. Yeah, a rival adventuring group to the player characters, and Voonlar is like the next step up. Like, we're getting to a small town here. It's more prosperous than the Dales. It has a temple with a dominant temple.
There's another temple here.
Yeah, it's big enough to have 2 inns. And
a boarding house.
Yep.
Winemakers with these. Okay. Shield trading. You even have trading companies, which is good. So you have teamsters and things like that. So that's good. Yeah. Wow. Firewood Glade.
Yep.
The 3 elves in. Not 1 or 2, but 3. 3 elves.
Yeah. So there's 2 inns in the place. There's a tavern. The Firewood Glade. That's where you buy firewood. The woodcutters have cut it, split it, and stacked it and sell it to you. Because everybody's busy and they can sell in bulk to passing traders. And
Bane, a temple to Bane even.
Oh yes.
Nice.
And you've already missed the whorehouse. Oh well.
Well, if I did, maybe I didn't want to say anything.
And
the White Stag.
No. And yet again we have a dump. And
we kind of always have a dump. Where's it?
Yeah. Down south below here at the bottom. There.
A garbage dump.
Go, bigger one.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shrine to Tempest.
Yeah.
Where's Wolfgar? Wasn't that his deity? Wasn't that his deity? Wolfgar's? From the Drizzt books?
Yeah, but he's way to the
I
northwest.
that's just
yeah.
Shit, at least I read some Forgotten Realms already. Oh man, that's awesome.
And
nice.
Here you see what happens when something is too swampy to farm. See the farms cut around it, and they leave a woodlot there.
Oh, okay. The swamp's big.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. Very cool.
And things like this had to be mapped this well because they were going to wander all over them asking questions and meeting people. And then, of course, they were going to have a battle with the Zents and an army. So I had to map stuff that well. And again, back to Donald Featherstone. You take a look at this, you can do a sand table and fight from this. Because Donald Featherstone did a book after book. And there's one that stands apart from the others because he used a different publisher. It's called Battles with Model Soldiers, and it's just been reprinted by, I think, the War Games Research Project or whatever. No, they brought it back into print. And he literally said, okay, you buy this box of Airfix figurines, you lay the table out like this, and here's how you have the battle. So you could actually use the chainmail rules and
here somewhere.
And convert Airfix figurines and say, okay, so our units will move like this. Because remember, we have no money. We're kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there you
That's
go.
awesome. So, was it this one was published?
Yes.
Okay.
Voonlar is yeah. I don't think that it's ever gotten this gorgeous treatment in print. I think it got a little thing. But anyway, yeah, this was part of the 1986 Realms turnover. I think what it got in print was just 2 paragraphs. I don't think they ever bothered with the map.
So Patrick is going back to the Canadian question because he's Canadian ancient gamer. Did it get some of his inspiration from small town villages in Canada that dotted the area outside of Toronto back then?
I suppose.
Okay.
In that all the topography that I saw out the window of the car, because I was too young to drive. My dad was driving, and I was sitting looking out the window. Because I soon learned not to read in a car, because my sisters would get car sick and they just grab my book and throw up into it and then slam the pages shut. And that was another book ruin. So I soon learned just not to have books with me in the car, because sure as shooting. Instead, I would grab a towel. And everybody would say, what do you need the old towel for? What are you, Linus or something like that? And then when one of my sisters would go, oh, I just hand her the towel and say, throw up into this.
I got car sick all the time as a kid.
Well,
I never
anyway.
got car sick.
Oh, I hated it. Yeah. My mother would be like this. It'd be like this in the car the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, hitting that accelerator. It's off, on, off, on, off, on, off.
Vroom, vroom. And your tummy would go, vroom. Boom, boom. Yeah, okay. Well, I would look out the windows and I would see things, the topography of the land. But the thing is, I'm driving through rural southern Ontario, usually, because that's where grandparents live and we're going to their farm. So I'm seeing modern stuff. The oldest things I'm seeing are rusty windmills. You know, the pinwheel windmills. Everything else is newer, except the barns that are literally falling apart. And they're fact new enough that we have oil derricks, the wigwag oil derrick that sits in the farm field. So I'm not driving through England, so I'm not seeing old stuff that might be misconstrued as medieval. Okay, so the influence is just the overall topography, the light, the colors, how much rock there is, what the trees are like. I'm not seeing close in. Because I'm not driving through country that would make me feel that way.
So that's how I remember. All right. So Curtis just said something that just clicked. Voonlar's in the Gold Box games. That's how I remember. I was like, where do I know that name from? Okay. Thanks, Curtis. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that connection.
Yeah, because they handed a lot of my stuff to outside licensees. And the thing is, I didn't have any computers at this time. And when I did have a computer, it was the down payment for Spellfire was a Mac 2. In those days, all computer games were built on Macs or SunSpark workstations or something more powerful, but they were built on those computers to run on IBM PCs.
Yeah, or some were Apple IIs, the Apple II era.
Yeah, or Apple IIs. Yeah. And I couldn't run a game. So unless Jim Ward handed me a copy and said, "Here, Ed, a gift for you,"
right,
which he did at some Gen Cons, I never even saw the games.
I gotta ask, where's Hlruua?
Hlruua. Okay.
That was the training game in the SSI.
So if you go due east from Voonlar, you come to a much, much larger place called Hlruua.
Okay. See, now, the reminiscing's really coming back now, because those games were they were so awesome back then. Yeah, really cool.
Well, there's this old 80s saying in Canada, which is only as old as Ken Dryden, the goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens.
A legend.
Somebody asked him, "What's the golden age of hockey?" And he said, "When you were 12."
Yeah, that's true.
And it fits with all sorts of things. What's the golden age of D&D? When you were 12. What's the golden age of fantasy or science fiction? When you were 12. And you only stray from that answer if you discovered it much earlier or much later in your life.
Point.
Because we have that's what we turn back to from nostalgia. Even if it was, in reality, a really pretty crappy time. We remember it with golden, hindsight of nostalgia. Because when you're 12, the world's still your oyster. You're still new things. Yeah. And things are exciting you. You haven't become jaded yet. If one thing turns you off or you get humiliated or disappointed, you turn to something else. You haven't lost that bright fire. So yeah, when you're 12. So yeah, they're hitting your spot when the games were, oh, this is great, and this is wonderful, and if you played it now, you go, oh boy, this is pretty crude and primitive.
For me, it's close to Home's Basic, because I was, in 77, 78, 79, it's Home's Basic. But I think my golden era of D&D is 83 to 85. When Arcana is coming out, and the glory age of first edition, and all the great articles in Dragon magazine, like a Cavalier and Ed and Leonard's Archer class, and the Deathmaster and all that stuff. That I think that's our glory era, and my campaign's 3 years old at that time in 83. So it's a great point. It's a great point that you make there. I got a question from someone who's very into this. Did you ever do any underwater maps?
Yep.
There you go, Jory.
I did tons of Underdark maps, and I did tons of underwater maps, and they never published the underwater maps at all. And most of the Underdark maps they handed out to outside licenses because people were doing play-by-mail games, stuff like that.
All right, so I'm gonna ask that question for future. Do you have those underwater maps somewhere?
Somewhere.
There you go. We'll put that on a quest to find those, Troy. Yeah. All right, you ready for 1983, everyone? Oh, A Cursed Age of Bronze. Is that a story that you wrote, or is that someone outside license? Because that was a box set.
Okay, it was an outside license, and I believe George McDonald was of SSI was helming that, and then Jeff Grubb wrote the in-house module to go with it. And I believe that's where we had our first Realms continuity screw up, which led to having a Realms traffic cop, who the first one was Jeff. We had 3 fates for the Princess Alucer and Acacia. In one of the in the game, she does a Patty Hearst sort of thing with the fire knives, and Jim Lauder was just starting to write another fate for her in what became Crusade, and Jeff wrote another fate for her in the module. So it was like we had the 3 contradictory fates of the princess, which is when they decided they better have somebody running this show.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had kind of lined up, thinking, how did a lot of the geography and maps of stuff changed as the stories evolved, but you also early on kind of started handing it over to but
not yet.
Exactly, you had a lot of you had a lot of time beforehand. So did you like, no, I didn't like that version, and kind of screw that, and then changed it as the story evolved or something, or were you more like, now I've designed it, now I have to live with it, and I'm not going to change it, period? Is that consistency really part? Is it really meaning when I design something that in my Greyhawk campaign, even if I don't like it, I have to live with it. That's what the terrain looks like, unless there's divine intervention or some other stuff, so to speak.
Yep.
So,
yeah. I always expanded rather than redrafting something, with one exception. Things that had a known history, and I believe I sent Jay just one of the Drannor maps.
Yeah.
Oh no, and we're 1983, and that's where we are. Ed, you sent me two.
Okay.
You sent me 2 maps.
Okay.
Bum, bum, bum.
Okay. Okay. So here's
Awesome.
Drannor. This is Drannor at the height of its glory, when it's the city of song. So we're going way back in time, in Realmsdate. So this is in fact Drannor at its furthest extent. So this is a elven city living in harmony with nature. So there's a lot of, garden in the city and forest in the city.
And then we have map number 2.
and this is today ruined Drannor. This is the demon and devil haunted ruins of Drannor at the time. So it's the same map but ruined.
Yeah.
And I sent both of these off to TSR, part of the ruins of Drannor set, and I was somewhat underwhelmed by the maps that they produced, because I'd drawn all sorts of detailed maps, of bigger ones of these, that was all heavy ruins and tumbled columns and shattered this, and they cleaned it all up, and it looks sort of like the football groundskeepers had prettied up the field before.
They got zombies going around cleaning things up or something.
Yeah. and it was like, no, I want it to look like one of those things in New England where you're stumbling through the forest and there's old rusty cars with trees growing up through them, and your footing is bad because there's overgrown with vines, pieces of crap from the old farms and lost things there, and they cleaned it all up, and it was like, no, but anyway.
So, well, I mean, you got some depth and detail on this. The Lover's Glade is even over here. Yeah.
Yep. And by the way, both of these maps had overview pages where I had key numbers, just numbers, because the map is too small.
Right.
It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet, to tell you what all of these buildings are. So
most of the buildings.
Yeah. All of the buildings that are large black buildings, as opposed to row houses.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And all of the warehouses as well, and the businesses. So I knew what they all were, because if I didn't know what they were when the city was intact, I couldn't possibly tell you what was in the ruins.
Yeah.
You came along later.
It looks like most of the big buildings were put into ruins.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool. So I do have a quickie question back to the Curse of the Azure Bonds for someone asked, and I don't remember this reference, so I got to find it. Oh, where was it there? Does Ed know if the character of Alias ever started with a different name?
No. That is a Jeff and Kate character.
Okay.
And remember, Alias had a bunch of sisters, and Alias was the name for that sister that we looked over the shoulders of, because they're all clones, and they don't know their own past, and they're dominated by the magical tattoos down their arms and so on. So that was the name that Jeff and Kate gave to the character when creating it. That cast of characters in that book, the original novel, Azure Bonds, that was Jeff and Kate's. And they borrowed my family, the Wyvernspur family, and said, do you mind? And I said, not at all. This is a shared world. This is what you do. And then I just step back and I'll read the book when it comes out. Because there are people that I was asked to read the book for continuity purposes beforehand, and there were other people, and Jeff and Kate. Jeff is my co-creator of the published realms. I trust the man implicitly and explicitly, so just go to town. I'll enjoy whatever you write, because I know you'll do the realms justice. So yeah, I don't have to, vet it. I just have to enjoy it.
Awesome. We're going to jump to 1985. We're still not in the original. Are you negotiating at this point? Are you talking with TSR at this point? No, it's 86, right?
Yeah, Jeff hasn't come to me with the offer.
You are writing though. You've been writing for Dragon Magazine at this point.
Oh yeah, I've been writing from '79 regularly on.
That's right.
So okay, here we are with a city, the capital city of Cormyr, Suzail. This is one of 3 maps of Suzail. Some of the other maps that the characters would receive, all the buildings would be black dots filled in. But my map, they were all clear, so I could do an overlay and put numbers on them.
Oh, okay.
An overlay sheet, and then there's a halfway map, and this is the halfway map with some of the military barracks and the navy bit down the side. Yeah, that's right. And then the caravan paddocks and because they were inside caravan paddock, inside the walls and outside the walls. This is inside where a trading coster is assembling its valuable stuff. The night gate in there you see outside the city. No, outside on the northeast. Okay, right there, northeast. Right on the very edge of the map, right there. Yep. That's the night gate city outside the city. Okay. And then here you have the royal palace right in the center with, and then to the south of it is this building called the royal court. So if you imagine the royal family lives in the royal palace, and the royal court is sort of like where all the business takes place, the Capitol building as opposed to the White House. Okay. And then around here, around the promenade, this is the promenade, the main drag. And a lot of the noble families have their grand mansions along the inside and over to the west.
Oh, I see all this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas, whereas if you were going to a really high-nose store or a really ritzy inn, it would be on the other side of the promenade, the south side, around the central curve. These blocks here. Yeah, these 2 blocks. Yeah.
Interesting.
But I have them all mapped, and this is the again, this is from the 1986 turnover, but it's an earlier map that I've just labeled and sent to them.
Yeah.
Wow. And this is Lake Azoon in the center, which is an ornamental lake. Most of it is 6 feet deep or less. In most of it, you can like literally see the little fishies swimming around in it because it's inches deep.
Koi pond.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Nice. Any commentary, Alyssa? This is like this is.
I don't want to disturb it. I just love the discussion so much. I don't want to interrupt. This is so awesome. Yep.
Yep. So, and you see this is page 14 to 15 from. I see you copyrighted all this stuff when you sent it over there. I guess there's no agreement yet. It's just copyrighted.
No. Jeff told me put copyright on it because then if somebody steals it in the mails.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We're both protected. You're protected and we're protected. So I just hand wrote it on and photocopied them and sent them off.
All right, here's my question. How many people inhabit the city, roughly? Guess.
Oh, well, okay, here's the thing. Not quite the same as Waterdeep. Waterdeep has a huge seasonal variation because people escape the harsh climate in winter if they're wealthy enough.
Right.
To have estates down in Tethir and Alm, and they leave. But for most of its existence at this time in the 1350s, 1360s DR, when the Realms starts, where play is when the Realms is first published, we have about 120,000 people living here at the height of things, and about 100,000 at the depths of winter.
Okay. All right, cool. Whew. Well, we made it to 85 so far. Let's see what we got here. Now, 86, this is the year of publishing, right? Is Forgotten Realms published 86 or 87?
87 for the box set. 86 is when they buy it from me, and I believe Darkwalker on Moonshae comes out. It's the first thing. Oh, and Inside Dragon, there's a little freebie throwaway fold-up map of a little bit of the Dales. But we don't see the box set till 87.
And I got that downstairs, and I forgot to bring that up. I apologize. I'm going to run down there. Scornubel is 86. There's Scornubel.
Oh.
Okay, Scornubel is a merchant trading city. This is an early bit of Scornubel because, of course, as time passes, it expands across. The ferries cross the river here, and Scornubel starts to build up on the south bank as well. But this is like a lawless frontier caravan city.
Okay.
And you see the caravan paddocks here. The stockyards here where you could have livestock. So they're all delineated, yeah. And then others that are just for keeping your stuff without it being stolen as you load the wagons and unload the wagons. And then you have rows of warehouses. Those are the large similar buildings. And Scornubel is sort of, we actually only see it in the third Chandra book in fiction. But yeah, a lot of wildness goes on in Scornubel.
Yeah, it's not walled either, too, which is...
No, it's not walled. It just grew.
Yeah. Very
cool. And it has a very uneasy local government, as in it's all the various merchant costers and caravan trading companies sort of collectively keeping order.
Like it. Excellent. I have another one from 86. I think it's a two-parter here because I think this one may have a yes. All right. So here's Westgate, and we got a key with this one. I'll throw the key up real quick, so it's behind it. Here's Westgate.
Yeah. So the reason I sent you this one, this is a city, an important city in the realms. It's the sort of, rogue city, independent city-state, and every single city map from my campaign had an overlay map tag sheet or a map key, just numbered key, and I sent you one of them just as an example. So you can see there. If you do your maps in black Staedtler ink or any dark black ink with cheapy crap typewriter paper, you can lay a blank sheet of paper on top, see the original map through it, and then just write all your key numbers.
Okay.
See, I thought you were going to say you did this on the typewriter.
No way. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, on the typewriter would be a typed key, a legend to what these numbers are. But I just hand drew all these in a hurry because this you can change easily.
Yeah, you can see the harbor here, and yep.
Yes.
So you got those pens out here.
Yep.
I like how you do your trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, Westgate is an important place where the overland trade routes at the end of the Heartlands, the eastern end of the Heartlands, meet the sea. So you have lots of caravan activity, assembling and disassembling, and there is now a great online play run by Eric Scott to be as the Dungeon Master, and Aaron Evans and others play in it, the Dungeon Scrawlers.
Yeah,
the Westgate Irregulars.
Oh, okay. Ooh. They get some huge numbers.
And because that crew is exploring Westgate, Eric Scott to be, like any good dungeon master, is slowly designing Westgate up to date.
Oh, nice.
So sooner or later you'll see a DM's Guild book from him, with my blessing, but he's doing it.
That just answered a question from Big Mac. So you can publish DM's Guild stuff, but it's got to go through DM's Guild, and it's got so that WotC gets her cut, right?
Yeah, that's the only legal way to publish stuff set in any of the approved for DM's Guild Wizards of the Coast D&D world.
So in theory, Ed, you could publish something every week if you wanted to. I'm just saying, yes.
Yeah.
You could start over. Okay.
There's a guy in Britain, Carl Heimdall, who I think has been doing it about that rate. He's just been publishing stuff set in the realms like a machine. Pow, 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 they're coming out. I admire someone with that much time and energy. I don't have it anymore because I'm still busy doing so many projects now. There's no way I can do DM, but I've done a lot of DM's Guild stuff. I've done the Border Kingdoms and I've done Thay as gorgeous hardcover books, so they look like an official rule book. And in fact, the Border Kingdoms is an official rule book. So yeah, I would love to do this, but I mean, I'm 63. I may only have 10 years left. I want to write novels. So there's a limit to what I can do. So I'm thrilled when somebody else does DM's Guild stuff. I just want the Guild to make everything physically print copy if you can. Like if the designer can make it. I know that Wizards is going in the other direction, you know, digital, but I would like everybody at home who can't use digital or doesn't have a good internet connection to be able to get printed copies of everything published at the Guild.
I don't care what anyone says. I love books.
I
think
me
it's
too.
Yeah, I love having it in hand. I think it's just I think they do well with the DM's Guild. Well, they do just from Patrick with all the reprints he gives for us to give away alone in Greyhawk, right? So you know, with all the stuff we have. So yeah, you gotta have the books and the copies. So I think this is 86. Let me just see. I think the last thing I have jumps to 92. And that is the Menzoberranzan detail. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I think I got everything else. I want to make sure. Yeah, it looks like so I think it's this one. Right, there we go. So this is a Menzoberranzan detail map. So that you did up here. So some Underdark love here.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
This is from the Menzo box set, and in the room I am sitting in talking to you from, which is now full of, it's my office and it's full of books and games and swords and stuff like that. In those days, this was a spare bedroom and it had 2 single beds in it. Okay. And they had those horrible poplin bedspreads on it. You know, a sheet of white cotton with little puffs all over it in regular rows. So it looks like, you know, tumbleweeds were all over the bed. And I ruined one of those bedspreads by drawing with Sharpie marker, because a Stadler is too small to do a map in a weekend, because I had a weekend to do the Menzo map, the city map. This is an 8.5 by 11 detail of a map that covered a single bed. So It was probably about 30 sheets. And I hand drew some of those are stalagmites in the bottom right-hand corner. Mm-hmm. And some of them I hand drew, and some of them I cheated and used one of those Stadler sheets where they have little, you get them in all the school kits now to go with your protractor and
right,
yeah, you know, little holes, and you can just exactly. Because I had to do this in a heck of a hurry, a lot of them, but the big caverns around I cheated and used Sharpies, and the problem with using a Sharpie is the ink just keeps bleeding. So you touch it to the page and it just goes out like a starburst. So I would let it go out like a starburst, and then I would take a Stadler and quick start doing the edges of it, because once the Stadler ink is in the way, it stops the bleeding. The bleeding runs into the Stadler ink and stops, and so you can actually get an outline the way you wanted it. So I was doing all these little offside caverns around that particular important Drow city, which was Bob's invention. But for the box set, I was doing that. I was doing the world building for the box set. So I was doing all the fleshing out the noble houses, working out the runes for the noble houses, and doing this.
So did R.A. Salvatore take inspiration from what that box set was, or was it the other way around where you had notes that he was writing and then, or was it?
It was the other way around.
Okay.
He had already done the novels, the Homeland, okay, the seminal trilogy, and he and I think Doug Niles wrote most of the booklets okay. I was doing I was putting the frame around the painting, so to speak. And yeah, this was I just included this to show you an example of what you can do in a weekend if you're crazy.
All right, I got a question. I don't know if this question will be difficult or not. So let's let me go back to the main screen here. All right, Ed, here it comes. What do you consider canon now? I mean, because there's stuff you said, all this DM's Guild stuff's coming out that you're not. I mean, is it what you're doing? Like in your campaign, I'm assuming it's your stuff, right? But what is Forgotten Realms canon? I know that's a bad term. I know it's a tough term.
Yeah, everybody's home campaign is going to be different. Mm-hmm. And I realized that Wizards has started saying things like, only the latest edition is canon. We're ignoring everything else, and so on. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they can't legally do that because they have a contract with me, and it binds both sides. And the deal is, anything I write or say about the realms is canon until they contradict it in a later publication. Okay, so they can contradict things I said about the realms, but they can't say all that earlier stuff is null and void. Nope.
Got it.
You have to go through it item by item, name by name, character by character,
happens in history,
place
and that
by
changes
place.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be. Yeah. They just say, "Oh, it's gone."
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's in the same way that you can say the victor writes the history books.
Yeah.
So let us say that a new regime comes in the United States of America, and they could rewrite the current guidebooks and geography books about, say, what's in Santa Monica and what's in Tampa Bay, and you know what you'll find when you go to Manhattan. But they can't, to any sane American, say this is the way it's always been, like 1984, and it was never any different, because all the old men and all the old women who lived in Mobile back then will say, nope, I was there and it was different. You know,
that is the number one. I'm going to say this, speaking for, I think, for the community of Greyhawk. That's the number one Greyhawk community fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I have a tie-in question to this a little bit. Meaning, we now I'm looking at one of the a globe map of, you have Forgotten Realms, and you have like Toril and on the left, and then you have the Karatur part of the east end. What were your plans? Because that was something that TSR kind of shoehorned in, or put the two and two together, or what's the story behind there? Or did you have other plans, or how did that come to be, so to speak?
Oh, I had plans for many continents.
Yeah?
We've never gotten away from Faerun, because I remember in the early days there was no digital, so you are limited strictly by word count. There's no web enhancements. There's nothing, and because certain areas like the Shadowdale and the other dales and Waterdeep and its environs were popular, they'd go back there in later products. I mean, how many times have we covered Waterdeep?
Many, over and over again. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I would always say, guys, I haven't finished carpet bombing the rest of the planet yet.
Yeah.
And they'd say, yeah, but nobody wants to buy a book about Hlruua. They won't sell. And I'd say, well, how do you know that? You haven't published a book about Hlruua first. Yeah, but we know Waterdeep sells, so let's do another Waterdeep book.
Oh my gosh.
So when you're arguing with the bean counters and you're not, and you're not even on staff, you're not going to win any of these arguments.
That's true. Yeah.
But I had planned to put all of the continents in, and I wanted a world that was slightly bigger than Earth.
Yeah.
But it didn't have a large Pacific Ocean, as in mainly empty.
So then you had really room for a large Asian, or even bigger than Asian size continent. So
Faerun with Karatur and with Zakhara, which is all part of the same thing, would not be the biggest continent.
Oh wow.
But if you look south of Zakhara, you'll see a huge pile of islands. And I wanted the whole planet to have island chains. In fact, the lost continent of Ankarome, which was, dangled in front of players from the very beginning, wasn't a continent at all. It was an island chain. And it was a campaign in which the player characters were on board a ship that kept getting hit by storms, and the masts would break or the sails would go overboard, and they'd be washed to the next island, and they'd have to go ashore to get stuff to repair their ship, like a new mast. So they'd have to fight the monsters and go through whatever ruin or dungeon was on that island. They had to. It was a captive audience, and then often it would go to the next island. And that was an entire campaign I'd set up, which they never published. But they also got the idea it was somehow a continent, not an island chain. I wanted to have these seas full of island chains because it's way more interesting.
Hopping. Yeah, absolutely. Because you can get different types of societies up there. Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
I still have NDAs in place. I can't start listing all the continents and telling you exactly where they are, but because that's what I'm prevented from doing. And one of the reasons that is the same reason that I think TSR did this. All previous editions aren't canon anymore, because under the Hasbro model of licensing things out to, say, a TV series on a streaming service, or a series of movies, or movie novelizations, you don't have to check it against all this back lore. You can just do whatever you want. You can have anything in that continent. You can have it full of talking golems because there's no detail. So it's easier. So you're giving a free hand to a license.
We saw in the movie ad, there's a Harper symbol on so we know the Harper's going to be. So, what version, right? So
and we know Neverwinter's in it, and so I'm not giving anything away by saying those things, but yeah, that's always the difficulty, and the one thing I think that creative companies should be aware of, and I know this because I've been through it. I'm old enough. That's the one tragedy of being old. I've been through enough cycles with Marvel and DC Comics where they completely redo the origins of characters and they start all over again and reboot, and you go, but that isn't the story of the Silver Surfer, or that isn't what happened to Gwen Stacy, or that, and they say, oh, never mind, old man, this is new now, and you go, no, you're throwing away the history, and the history that you built up is the thing of value that makes it different from some plastic throwaway thing that was invented for this Christmas campaign. The thing of value is all the years of shared experience, all the gamers sitting around tables who played in the Pomage or fought Ayus or whatever. Yeah. And now if you just with a stroke of a pen change things, you take away all the stuff they experienced.
Yep.
And it's sort of like saying, it's like saying, you guys don't matter. We have your money already. And it's sort of like, no. Celebrate that which makes the setting unique and build on it. Sure, you can change it, but have it be an in-world change that has an explanation.
Move the story forward and find new stories that ties into the old and evolve it, so to speak.
But that takes
go
work.
even further back and put it back in prehistory or something. Yeah.
All right. Two quick questions for Ed. One, Ed, your take on the Spell Plague. Who is responsible for writing that?
Oh, the actual writing of the Spell Plague was done in-house because they had to change the rules for, of the game from first edition to second edition, like remove all assassins from the game. Yeah. The idea for the Spell Plague was borrowed from the God's War, which I put in my Dragon 54 article about the Pantheon of the Realms. It was like, okay, if you need to reboot a campaign because you've given somebody a +7 singing sword and they are killing everything, or you've otherwise gotten game balance out of hand, you need to reboot, you have a God's War. And the God's War means that clerics can't get spells above level 3 because they can't contact their gods. And you can change anything by DM fiat because that's just the way when the gods come back and everything's reordered. And they said, oh, what a great idea. We'll use it to kill off all these confusing gods like Hlruua and Lyra, because I had 2 Lyras, because there's the Lyra, the Maiden of Joy, the Joybringer, and there's Lyra, the illusionist goddess, who deliberately copies the name of another god. They said, oh, that's too confusing. Gamers don't understand that. They're stupid. And I'm going, no, gamers are the most creative and intelligent people in the world. Do not undersell your audience. Exactly. But anyway, that they borrowed the idea of the God's War and rewrote it into the Spell Plague, or Time of Troubles rather. And then the Spell Plague was the next reset. And the other thing about the Spell Plague was we wanted, and this was happening for 4th edition, jump the timeline ahead by a century. And what that means is you could ignore all the older lore and you could just say, this is the way it is now. And immediately, some of us working in the realms, Brian James, Brian Cortijo, and me, said, nope, you can't do that in Cormyr because we have an unbroken line of the ruling dynasty of the House of Abarskir. So we have to tell you how we got from there to here. So in the Backdrop Cormyr article, which was published in Dragon, we filled in the blanks across the gulf of the 100 Years. And Chris Perkins said, so you're the guys who did that. Yes, yes, we are. It's the same way that I would not want to open a history book.
Right.
And say, well, after Queen Victoria, we're not going to tell you what happened, but now Charles is about to.
I agree.
Here.
Yeah, and you go, what? You know, in the same way, and you wouldn't want a history of the United States of America that says, well, there was this president called Woodrow Wilson, and then there were a bunch of guys we don't have to tell you about, and now the guy in power is, and you go, what? Wait a minute.
Exactly.
Yeah. People hate when it's denied them. So give it to them, because this is a service industry.
Yep.
So I think this follow-up question tells me that your timeline's different. How closely does your timeline history match the Grand History of the Realms book? So I guess my guess is you're in your game, whenever you play, it's different.
In my home campaign set in the Realms, we are at the year 1372. That's how far we've gotten. Which is like the Grand History of the Realms goes far beyond that. So we're still at 1372, and like any good dungeon master, I let my characters vote on what character classes are admissible, what editions. For the longest time, we had first edition bards and second edition bards playing side by side because they like stuff about the both classes. But they all have a vote, and I have a vote, so they can all outvote me. And so far, they voted the Time of Troubles is not happening. So far, it hasn't happened in the Home Realms campaign because it's up to my players. I'm here to make my players have a fun time.
Hey, Ed, I got Paladins, subclass of Fighter, Paladins that are subclasses of Cavalier. I got both.
Why not? And why get rid of Cavaliers?
I don't know. I love
last
Cavaliers.
time I checked, we still had nobles.
Yeah, I love Cavaliers.
I look, there's a noble, there's a noble.
We had an entire joust based on Cavaliers, except for Alyssa's character. No, a couple others that weren't, and Melf and Smelf and stuff that weren't Cavaliers in that, but it mostly was. Yeah. That's a great question. So, Alyssa, Annie, do you have any other questions for Ed here?
I think
they're Moonshaes.
Yeah, we covered so much, but I think we need to ask Ed to come back for a follow-up.
Yeah, down the road we'll do
sometime
that,
next year or something like that. That will be
maybe find some of those underwater maps
exactly.
that no one's
we
seen.
Can kind of dig into some of the stuff.
Yeah, this is
sure.
This is
I didn't send you a single dungeon map either.
No,
exactly.
I mean we got a lot of stuff we can discuss in the future.
Yeah, we have more stuff.
By the way,
yeah.
On the corner of the screen there, the main screen, that's Doug Niles' Moonshae showing right now.
Okay, that's Doug Niles.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
You see the difference between the one I showed you, and that's his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
I'd be happy to come back. Give me time to find some more maps.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can reschedule sometime next year or something. When
In the meantime, since Alyssa said that her style is from, let's go over
dig
here
into
and take a look at Wamtham, the completed Wamtham here, which is this is the first one that Alyssa has done for Greyhawk. So Alyssa, and look, it's all labeled up and highlighted and everything, beautiful. So Alyssa, take us through some of the wonders of this map.
Honestly, I think you could just walk us through, and I'll talk to you about whatever region. I mean, we all know the size of Wamtham. We also know that it had a huge actually, just let me rewind for a moment. I did 12 canvas prints of this map, and I got to hand one to Tom Wham over in GameholeCon, because I'm like, dude, this is your city, so please allow me to give your map to you.
Nice.
But what I love about this is Anna really helped me understand a little bit about the history of this. I'm doing this with the Earth Journal and Greyhawk Online. Basically, I promised them that every single quarter I'm going to do a Greyhawk City map, but I didn't want to get into like a huge amount of lore and canon because I can't handle that sheer volume of detail right now. So give me the ones that haven't had a huge amount of love, and one of them was number 1 on the list. Krakenheim is my second one, and we're just going to give some love to these settlements. So what population have we got? They had this huge influx, so we've got some spillover coming outside. There was 2 fan art pieces done over the last 20 years, so I've honored those, a little bit doff of the cap in the general sort of the center hub area. And the actual moat going around the outside edge is like inspired from one of the fan pieces. So I'm like, it's almost like playing to canon, right? Let's not throw it all out. Let's just keep a little bit about what's been done before. So there's a little bit that's still familiar to all of us, even though I hope I have done it justice and taken it to the next level with this just huge amount of detail and love, you know. And I don't know how deep you can zoom in on this, but
I can go way down on this. So wait a minute. I don't.
There's a lot here that's kind of very honestly Ed inspired and Ed like. I mean, I'm not doing these just as solid.
Look at the trails
because obviously I'm coloring this, but you can see I'm kind of picking up on a lot of what Ed did 40, 50 years ago. I'm kind of carrying forward.
Look out here with the trees in the
I'm not dead yet.
Well, and that's even the best bit, because I didn't even know until like an hour ago. Like, holy shit! I think I got my style from Ed in many ways. And you can see it in my fields, you can see it in my trees, you can see even the way with I do sort of a lot of my buildings. I really like this, and I hope that the community really likes this map too. I feel like I want to honor that, like, this setting.
I love the middle
in a big way, and I want to just sort of put down my piece and say, this is my contribution. This is my version of, in this instance, Wampham. You know. We've got the little statues facing in and out of the city, because I figure if you could have an island in the river. Oh, by the way, Ed, you could see the currents with no arrows.
Yeah, see.
Yes, yeah.
No arrows. Yeah, you can see the currents here.
That's beautiful. Yeah, because that really looks like a painting now. Or almost a photograph. I mean, it looks realistic. And I was just doing black and white, and I'm just whipping them out from my campaign. And this is like art now. This is like, oh, I want to have this on the wall, you know, because.
Well, so I'm going to show you Krakenheim in a moment, but I do all mine black and white too to start with, because I was ink and paper too. Like that, those are my roots. That's why I was so fascinated by the style of your maps, because I'm like, this is what I picked up as a kid. This is what I did. This is my influence. And then I come in with just digitally coloring later on, you know. But yeah, that's why you'll see very strong black lines on here, and that's because those are my roots. I start with the black and white version of it all.
I'm gonna say this one time: you want this, you got to join Alyssa's Patreon, right? This is a Patreon.
Yeah. This will not be available anywhere else. No. The Earth Journal is going to print it,
right?
And I think that's coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
If you want to have access to this,
like I do, Online will have a low-res version of this,
right?
But if you want the high-res version,
absolutely.
And every quarter, I'm gonna give a Greyhawk map out.
So Melissa, yes,
that'd be worth it just for that.
Absolutely, just like it's worth it for Anna's too. Both Anna and Alyssa, you should be. Everyone out on here who's got a Greyhawk, loves Greyhawk, should be in both Patreons. I'm just saying that bluntly. So okay.
Can we show my Krakenheim?
Yes.
So it's more
I have one question on this. I have one question.
Yeah.
I don't recall the mode all the way around it. Was that added late? When you were doing the style, when you were building it up? I don't remember that.
Well, if by late you mean halfway through.
Okay. No, there's other maps
the motor's been there for a while. The motor's been there for a short while. Okay. I mean, it was drawn in the black and white piece.
I missed it then. That's my bad. So, I didn't notice it. Here is Krakenheim. All right, so, and this is in.
So Krakenheim. Krakenheim is obviously these are the Frost Barbarians, right? This is a lot smaller. This 4,500 people live here, and I'm going Norse inspired And because I'm going Norse inspired, Anna was like, check out this place, check out this place, check out this place. There's very little written about Krakenheim itself, but that gives us some latitude as well, right? We know where in the world it's located. We know that it is getting into the river estuary. We also know that it is the Frost Barbarians. So what I'm doing is I researched with Anna's help. I researched like Norse settlements, how they laid things out, and there's some really distinctive things about it. They have they have a lot of their cattle and their farmland inside the settlement walls. They also have that they might have some docks and everything, but they also pull their long ships onto the shoreline, right? So I'm getting a lot of inspiration from that, and they're also their stockade. Very different than the regular medieval walls that we're used to.
It's cool. So what's the completion date on this one?
End of the month for black and white, and then I'm hoping end of December, mid-January, we'll have the color on this one done. But yeah, and one thing on that one too is you'll actually see I'm thinning out the building density as we get towards the outside wall. That's intended, because that's the way that Norse settlements were. They've got their farmland and their cattle and everything there, and that will give Krakenheim a very different look. In fact, if you pan around the wall a little bit towards the east and down, there's actually a gatehouse towards the south here. Where Anna, you know the name of this place. I don't, but it's a modern.
It's down in the southwest of Sweden. They've actually built a Viking town next to a park in I think it's Trelleborg in southern Sweden, and they built it next to the modern day housing and stuff. They built this replica of a Viking town defenses and all that, so to speak, and it's amazing. It's part of a
so I went off and got photos of this place. They have the gatehouse heavily photographed, so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to draw that gatehouse right here. And it's very different than your pseudo-European
they
medieval high fantasy, right? There's no towers here, guys. You know,
the ramparts are dirt and wooden logs, and they built wooden fortress, wooden defenses and stuff. So
and it will give stone
and a lot of earth,
unique
so to speak. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's cool. So I am spoiled, Ed, because I'm going to have both Anna and Alyssa doing work for the Altamira box set.
Oh, it's going to be gorgeous. When can I buy?
Oh, let's hope the end of next year. Let's hope. Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on, man. You got to put out 5 or 6 a year to make a living.
That's why I have a real job still. Oh my gosh, that's awesome, Alyssa. It's coming together, and it's
coming together. I'm hoping to have that whole top area finished.
Casey.
Maybe even this weekend, to be honest with you.
That is fantastic.
That's beautiful. I love watching things in the making, like being, partway through, being filled in. That's beautiful.
And that's one of the things when we have this monthly show, we have those updates at the end where they can, Anna and Alyssa can show their work in progress. That's part of why we have this fantasy mapping show that we put together. And it's been wonderful. I have a feeling this is going to be our top show of all time here. So everyone,
it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
I've been watching, and even right now, the viewers, this is an all-time high for us.
Yeah, it's we really appreciate it. It's the Ed factor,
Team
absolutely.
Ed. Mm-hmm.
In fact, the numbers are higher now than they were during the game on Saturday night with Ed. But that's okay. We really appreciate it. Plus, we got some great giveaways tonight from Frog God. So,
honestly, one of the things that I've found, not to interrupt Jake, but
go for it.
One of the things I found is like the likes of Ed. I actually had Skip Williams on my Gamehole Con panel. And Skip was just chomping at the bit to tell some stories, right? And everyone wanted him to as well. And I think we all want to hear stories about the beginning, like the maps and the stories behind them and the people involved. And it's like, we want that. So, Ed, we would love to have you back because we know you've got a lot more stories to tell. And maybe one day we can even get Skip on as well. Because you guys... you do have stories for us, and we should be sitting around the campfire listening to you, because they're fascinating stories. They really are, about the game that we all love, that have shaped our lives, truly. So that, I think, is one reason why this show is doing so well right now. It's like Ed is like revealing just things we've never heard of and maps we've never seen before.
And and it's just I want to say once again, Ed, you know how much of it. I don't want to sound like a kiss ass here, Ed.
Oh, go ahead.
Who else in the entire world can say, I have Ed Greenwood playing in my Greyhawk game? And I really appreciate that.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you so very much. And let me tell you something. Last Saturday, everyone had such a fun time. And, so, yeah, exactly. I have to. Yeah. And let me just say this real quick. This is what I'm working on. Ed more than likely will be at GaryCon. So we'll have the entire group of 2 drink minimum at GaryCon, with the exception of Eric Boyd, in person. And we will add Mr. Valsek, right? Did I say it right? His last name correctly, Ed? Who you're working with, the Fate of the Norns.
Oh,
did I say it right?
Volkoskas.
I apologize.
Andrew Volkoskas.
We're going to add Andrew in, but I gave an idea. We may, because there's the big fundraiser that is done every year, the auction on Saturday, we may raffle a seat to play in person with us. I'm DMing, Ed playing, and the rest of the 2 drink minimum, and all that money will go to the charity during that auction. All right, so I'll give you more details on that coming up if we finalize that. So note, if you're going to GaryCon, you may have a chance to play in the 2 drink minimum group. So we're working on it. All right. Just want to let you know.
I'll wear my best dress.
So I don't want to keep it too much longer because we're already over time and we haven't even done shout outs yet. So I know some people asked some questions, but I know we answered most of them there. Yeah, I know Wiley. I know you're going. I know Dave's going. I know Rob's going. We got a whole crew going from the community, which is really fantastic. So yeah, and if you haven't, last Saturday night it's on Twitch and it's on YouTube. You can watch the game with Ed. 3 members of 2 drink minimum and 5 members of the Slav squad all together. It was an unbelievable, hysterical time. And the funniest thing is Ed, tell them what you said at the end about about the game, about getting in trouble. It was fun. It was hysterical. You didn't have to worry about it, right?
No.
The ladies took care of it with the
oh yes, the ladies took care of it. I'm thinking, I'm going to have to watch my mouth. I'm going to say and do blue things, and nope, I could just stand there. Wow, they were piling right in there.
Yeah, absolutely. The Darling Bones and Mandy and the whole crew. So Jeremy, just note, we're trying to get that game for 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it finishes an hour before the auction starts. I'm working on that. So, so
how are you going to auction the game that is already over?
We're going to do it beforehand on Facebook or somewhere, and for that person.
I see. So you're doing a pre-auction,
so they can put it into the schedule,
nice.
And then they're going to that money's going to go right into the auction fund, into the fundraiser. Yeah,
I was going to say you're doing some time bending shit at this point, but okay.
I'll ask that question, Mac, and ask Ed if he's made maps for Castlemorn.
Yes.
There you go, Mac.
Yep. And in fact, the Margaret Weiss Productions published a little freebie giveaway map, which was, I think an 11x17 color piece of cardstock and that was based, of course, on my turnover map. So yeah, of course there are maps. Now to find them. Yeah. There are 2 sea cans out in that yard, a 40-footer and an 80-footer high cube, and they are crammed to the rafters with boxes that I'm no longer strong enough to easily heft around. I used to toss them around when I was a teenager, but the years have not been kind. So I would have to, excavate to find them. So don't expect to see them soon.
So we can get Patrick Canadian Ancient Gamer to come over.
Yeah.
There's
He's
a problem.
Law enforcement.
There's a problem. We need to have a sorting place, and for half the year it's snow and ice everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't these guys came right at the end of fall before winter hit, and they were able to sit there in their shirt sleeves and heft boxes and carry them around and say, "What's this, Ed?" If you did that now, all the paper would get ruined.
You have to do a summer trip at some point.
Yeah, okay. And so, the time.
I know. None of us ever have enough time.
Yeah,
I'm hearing EdCon. Like we all get off there.
Oh yeah,
we all go to London.
EdCon in July or something like that. So yeah,
I think that would be a great idea. I do have a sleeping hut up in the woods.
We bring tents or something.
Okay. And I have 4.5 acres of woods.
You see, now this is getting spicy because that could be really good. EdCon, intense, bring your own.
Yeah.
I'll have to.
And the local law enforcement
Camp Greenwood,
will come up my driveway and say, Ed, what are you doing this time?
Well, I'm very hopeful that this Gary Con in person game goes off, and then we go. Maybe that'll lead to everyone wants to play in person. And we get more of those together. So
that would be cool.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do some quickie shout outs here. Who wants to go first? I'll make Anna go first.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have anything new to show really, because I've been just lazily moving it. No, not lazily. I have 90 maps on the 598 Atlas, and I've done 50 of them. So that's the big thing. I also have started putting together the Atlas, or the Heraldry Compendium, and the last I published on Heraldry was the good and the bad of Grey Kingdom that I had good help of Gary Hooley. That is now, you can go to my website, annabmeyer.com, and it's one of the last, you can see it on the front page. It's now open for everybody, because after a few weeks, up to maybe a month, on my Patreon exclusive, it's available for everybody. So you can just grab them there. That's all the Death Knights, the Saints, and some others from the Grey Kingdom, with great help of Gary Hoolian to do that one. And then there's the zombie goats and the Ayusian zombie goats. And the funny thing is that started a little craze, because I did a Google, or I searched on Midjourney for zombie goats, and apparently it was a thing. There was hundreds of zombie goats on after I'd done my 10 renderings on Midjourney, and then Photoshopped them, tweaked them up in Photoshop. So they became a little crazy. You can find lots of, go to Midjourney, you can search for zombie goats, and you can find lots of zombie goats. Some of them are awesome. They're at least as good as mine, so some of the other ones afterwards too. So I started a little phenomena with zombie goats. That was kind of funny. So there will be more Ayusian monsters coming. The Skull Tree is coming, and there will be more Ayusian spells, including the Dome of Despair, among others, coming too. And as soon as my players have experienced it, I also put up the first of the fauna of Meyerhawk, and that's the Auroch, the big old wild oxen or cattle from that I have in my Flannies campaign, with spread maps where they live and stuff like that. So that was kind of a test case to see if anyone is interested in these kind of weird, odd things that are kind of mundane things that I love to frequent in my campaign. But the big thing right now is to get the Atlas done. So I'm doing a couple, 2 or 3. My daily quota is to do at least 3 Atlas pages maps per day, so to speak. So I hope that I can sift through all. There is 98 of them, and then there's the index and a bunch of other stuff to do. Thankfully, the legend and all that is done from this 576 map, so I just need to update a few details. So the rest of that is fairly easy to do. It's the index and all the stuff. But thanks to Dwayne Costa's work on the previous index, I just need to update that for the 598 map. But there is some, because you need to tweak everything that is on the borders, and you need to shift all the big labels around and stuff like that. So that's probably about an hour or 2 hours per map at least to do and export it in JPEG and Photoshop. But the big thing right now for me is that I've ordered a new computer, and I'm picking it up this weekend. So now I have, after 5 years of have this sluggish beast that was an 8-core Intel 7th gen that is 5 years old, that can no longer cut it in render and stuff. So now I put together a $6,000 beast that it doesn't include the graphics card, because I already have that.
And that's $2,500. I've got a graphics card too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Oh my
gosh. So the graphics card was $2,000, and that was not included. So I bought a computer for $6,000, without a graphics card. So it's a beast. It's basically the fastest desktop computer you can build for money, almost exclusively, no matter what. And the really expensive thing is there is 8 terabyte of NVMe PCIe 5 SSDs in it, so just as a scratch drive, so I can really so I can dump stuff almost as fast as RAM, because I will RAID them together, and then I can use a scratch drive that is 4 terabyte in size that I can dump stuff and read and write to and from, so to speak. So
when she plugs this in, the internet is going to
well,
it's going to be like Christmas vacation.
Like exactly. The world will end.
Yeah, I need to borrow things. It's a 1300 watt PSU in it, so to run it. So we'll see if the house might, the electricity might go down, so I have to plug it in. We'll see. But so that is coming now, so I can do renders in much faster, and I can work on larger areas and stuff. So that this is something I've been, because I have I've figured out how to do it in software and to set up Gaia and World Machine to work on things that make it look beautiful. The problem is it takes forever to render. So now I have a beast of a computer that can render. It's a 24 core CPU in it, so there is a little bit of headroom to blast along with it. So for the next upcoming week, it will be a little bit intermittent back and forth, but thankfully I have my old computers will be up and running, and I will plug things a little bit back and forth, so to speak. So, but I will be around for Sunday for Gabin, and we will have a Legends and Lore that I think will be really cool this time too.
Yep.
And then on Friday next week, then it's time to have a mapping live stream again. And we were supposed to have had our Shieldlands campaign this Sunday, but that's when I have a date with Micro Center in Tustin to pick up my computer. So I'll do that on Sunday. So therefore, no Shieldlands game. So I'm sorry for my players and people who are interested in watching it, but we will be back, so to speak. And I'm also opening up for among my patrons. I'll put a notification to say that we are interested in grabbing at least one of my patrons to play in my game. So anyone who's interested in playing in my campaign long term and are in for playing in a very sandboxy, quirky game without classes and a whole bunch of weird stuff in it, so to speak, could kind of send me a patron, a direct message on Patreon or something, and we'll see. So I'm going to put out there will be like a hiring ad, so I'm going to downplay it as much as possible. So I tell all the bad stuff about it, so you're ready for it, so to speak. No, but I think it could be fun, because we would like to have 1 or 2 more players. We will have 6 players, because we always usually have 1 or 2 that might not make it that weekend. So we'll see. But there is I have a bunch of big renders kind of plan. One of the biggest one is I'm going to do an Altamira area render that was going to be 100 by 100 miles and with textures and stuff. That will be the first test of the new computer to see how fast it goes. The other one, simply after 24 hours, there was some power surge or something, so I never made it through what the existing computer renders. So it will be interesting to see how fast the new one can churn through. So there is a lot of new stuff. So I'm sorry that there is not that many fancy things to show at the moment, but there are things coming in the future.
I'm hoping your new machine will wake you up in the morning gently with a little nudge on your shoulder, a hot cup of steaming coffee, and go,
no.
Anna, I have drawn the next area for you.
That will be
Would
cool.
you like to look at it?
That will be awesome. My TARDIS, or something.
So we got a lot of that's so awesome, Anna. All that.
Yep. And I have to thank all my patrons, because it's your money that pays for this. So I'm so grateful for all the Patreon money.
I just want to see a live stream of you now doing this Microsoft Flight Simulator with this new.
That will be something that I can do down the line too. Because that's another cool thing I can do with it. That will be awesome. So that's something I can definitely test live streaming now. Some flight simming. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great ideas.
Yep.
So listen, what do you got going on? I know you got at least one Patreon tonight.
I'm going to be real quick, because I saw Ed go grab a map of some description. Yes. But maybe you could actually bring up the earlier cosmology map for folks.
Yeah, sure.
Just so they have some
second here.
Context. just for everyone in the chat, thank you for sticking with us for so long. We're going to be doing a drawing here shortly. Back in about 2011, 2012, a Gygax magazine #1, I was invited to do do the smaller one. I was invited to do a cosmology of role-playing map. James Carpio wrote this article for Gygax #1, which basically spoke about TSR being at really the center of the big boom, and then spoke about these different systems that were inspired by it. And he kind of described it in the terms of like nebula and the likes as they're expanding out from the Big Bang. And like I'm sitting there thinking, how the hell do I do a map about this Big Bang? And I was inspired by, well, let's just do a stellar map. So that's what I did. And this has been one of my most popular maps since. Plenty of people have this up as a poster on their walls. And I think it's awesome. But I think it's awesome because we look at it and we're looking at game systems. We're looking at publishers and we're going, oh, I remember that. Oh, I played that. And it sparks something within us all. So here I am 10 years later, and I am doing a Cosmology of Role-Playing 2023 version. And Jay has a work-in-progress version of this where I am putting at least 1,100 game systems on here. This thing right now is about 60 inches tall.
I see Buck Rogers.
It's got, I'm hoping, every game system ever is going to be on this up until present day. There's been a lot of research going into this. I'm going to have to, I've been literally walking around with my husband, Jack, like taking photos of booths at current conventions, saying, let's make sure we get their game system. Let's make sure we get their game system because they're selling a new game system. So this is a work in progress. Right now, I'm just throwing labels onto the map into their right timeline. And then I'm going to start stylizing this thing. We're going to start adding planets and moons and systems and nebula. It's going to be gorgeous. Why am I saying this? I am committed to having prints of this available at GaryCon next year. Okay. Luke Gygax has said he's going to carry the posters for this on the merchandise booth, which will be perfect. And I'm hoping to actually have a print of this, nice and large, signed by every guest. So, Jay, you're doing something for GaryCon next year. This is going to be my contribution to GaryCon next year. I want to get all of the guests signing this. We're going to have every game system, and including other countries. I was going to say other systems. And no, Germany is not another system. But they're all going to be on there. And I'm hoping it's going to be freaking fantastic and something where I honestly, I love doing this. Because I'm like, what do you mean Bambinos from Mars? I've never heard of this. Oh, it was actually a system. Okay, then. So awesome. There's some awesome game systems and some great publishers on this thing.
What size is this map going to be?
It's about 60 inches tall right now and 48 wide. But I think the final print is obviously going to be a little bit more towards a sort of regular sort of poster size. Okay. And I'm using film poster as kind of like, the main model for it. And I have to go huge. Otherwise, it's not going to be legible. Literally, there's going to be probably about, I want to say 1,150 titles on this map when I'm done.
That's fantastic.
And yeah, Randy, size does matter. You're right, babe. You're right. No, but I have to. I started off fairly small with that thing. And just the more labels I was throwing on, it got more and more cramped. So that's going to be my main release for Q1 next year.
That is super cool, Alyssa. Thank you so very much. All right, what do you got there in that tube?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been showing you bits and pieces of my Viking city for the last,
Yes.
And I thought, okay. Being as that's all now downstairs on a different floor, I'll show you something else instead. So I and 2 other Canadians, well, 3 other Canadians actually, have been working on Volo's Guide to Orm Pur for years now. And this is not my cartography work, but this is part of the map of Orm Pur. a coastal city in the realms, a port city.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that's Clinton Kronk, who is sort of masterminding the project. Got somebody to do this map for us. I wish I could tell you more about the actual mapper. I can't at the moment because I've forgotten because I'm old. But he did send me this gorgeous map, which I love, and he worked selling tractor parts, and this tube is actually a drive tube assembly for a tractor comes in these plastic tubes.
Oh,
so
perfect. Yeah.
If you wish to, anyway. So I thought I would just tease that because Vola's Guide to Ormpur will come out when it's ready. And it's just going into editing now. The inestimable Fiona is going to play with it. But there will be a new Volo's Guide to a new city in the realms that you've only seen in 2 paragraphs in the past. So every district, and Volo and Mert travel every district of the city together and talk about it.
That's lovely.
So
that is a great
that
map.
sounds like multiple 100-page book.
Did I? Oh.
You never mentioned book. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well,
it sounds big. I'm assuming drive-through, right? Is where you're gonna just
DM's Guild.
DM's Guild. That's what I meant. DM's Guild. Yeah. DM's Guild. Yeah. Awesome.
And then, of course, I'm still doing city block after city block, 96 city blocks of. Well, okay, Osclath has been done, finished as the overview, and I'm now doing the deep dive at one end of the city, the palace end. So I'm in the middle of writing. I think I've got 10 city blocks to go.
So I'll be ready for Gary Con.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, it will. By guess or by gosh, it will be ready for Gary Con. If not, certain people will be flogged, and it'll still be ready for Gary Con.
So, Ed, question for you from Big Mac: when are you doing the Ed's Volo's Guide to Realm Space?
I think that was a joke.
Volo's Guide to Realm Space. The problem is that when we fire Volo out into the void in a cannon, he doesn't come back. Well, okay, give me time. Volo has so many places to do in the realms before Elminster takes the square toe of his boot, inserts it in a particular portion of Volo's anatomy, and launches him into realm space.
Yeah, I can imagine. But let's go. All right, let's finish this up. What are we doing? I got to get up super bright and early tomorrow morning and produce the ever mysterious Tim's next underdog session, and that's 8 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, that starts 8 to noon. So, like I said, 5 streams in 5 nights, 5 days, or whatever. So we're continuing. That's tomorrow morning. We'll continue that. Tim's probably going to be in a bad mood, so everyone's going to die. In that one, I mean, I can just tell already. So, the underdogs are going to be the no dogs at the end of that. Well, we'll see. And that's tomorrow. And then Sunday night, Anna, Tim, and myself will continue our look into Dungeon Magazine Adventures. Great out content part 5. I think we're on Dungeon 100. So we're getting there. So we'll be doing that Sunday night. And that'll finish up the week of 5 streams. Now, this is big. One other thing. Winter's Night Game Fest. I was asked by Jimmy Duffy and Matt Everhart, Casey Rift, to participate in this. It's a 1-day middle mini-con. It's December 10th, Saturday. And I'm going to run a game, and I'm going to run a game with the Mike Disney group and a couple other people. I think I got 5. I got Mike Disney, Taryn, Bones, Darling, and Stiletto Assassin in the game so far. So we're working together, getting a group going. There's a lot of sponsors here. I'm one of the sponsors of it, and so that is going to be December 10th. Why I'm saying this is they need DMs to run some games. They don't have to be streamed, but if you want to DM and do something, reach out to me, or if you know Matt or Jimmy Duffy, reach out to them and give your interest that you want to DM. Okay, I know this is super short notice, but just let me know or let them know, and we'll make the proper connection. Okay, because it'll be cool. And like I said, our game's from 6 to 10 in my prime time slot that we normally run Ed's game, so it's perfect. That's Saturday night. Where's this? It's virtual. So I will be on Lord Gazumba channel from 6 to 10. Paraders Radiox will be on. We'll raid into them. Yeah, it's going to be, but we'll have a whole cast on our game. So that will be on December 10th. It'll probably be the only Saturday night I stream with the holidays in December, with all the holiday stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Yep. And the game with Ed was last Saturday night. So that was a week ago tomorrow.
I survived.
You survived, yes. Ravel Antar is getting more and more powerful. The whole group is, which is a lot of fun. So let's do the giveaways real quick here. Last call, exclamation point drawing, 2 $25 gift certificates going out from Frog God Games. All right. Thank you for the raids tonight. Thank you for the support. Thank you for all the gift subs. And just thank you for being such a great community. Yep. Without the community, Ed, Alyssa, Anna, and I are talking to ourselves. Which could be fun too, but not that much fun, so. Oh, thanks,
I don't know about you. I talk to myself every day.
Oh. All right, here we go. Closing this out. First winner. You got to be on the claim. Tim Enoch Pratt. Enoch Pratt. I'm assuming. Yep, you're on. Tim, got you. You got the one. I see you in the list there. Second winner. And please stay on. We're going to raid into the Mandy who played with Ed last Saturday night. We're going to raid into her game, okay? Please, I'm asking you all to stay. I want to go in with a raid well over 100, all right? And then just say hello to her. Lexfire, George.
Awesome.
Make sure George is on. Yep, you're both on. You're both VIPs. Yep. Gotchas. And grats. Thank you so very much. I'll get those codes to you all. Ed, Alyssa, Anna, thanks for what a wonderful show tonight. By the way, we got giveaways tomorrow morning. We got giveaways Sunday night. Tons of giveaways coming. Just come and hang out for the tomorrow morning with coffee and for a fun game. Watch characters die because Tim loves killing them. I'm a little bit of. I've been told I'm too soft on the players. That's not nice.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Ed, thank you. This was
thank you so much, Ed. Such a great. This was fantastic.
We learned a lot, and everyone saw the how the realms became, and that was just such a wonderful thing. I really appreciate it.
This is really fun. It's so nice to have somebody take an interest after all these years.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is part 1 of the Ed Maps show.
Yes, we'll have another one.
Yeah,
I'm thinking. Hey, there's Stiletto. Get to see her Fire Elementalist again, which is awesome. Probably after GaryCon, I think we'll do another one. That would be great. Sometime afterwards.
Sometime next year.
Sometimes in the spring, we'll do that. But plus, we get out on Gab and too to just talk regular topics. And we'll have one of those coming up too. See you all soon. Hang in there. Let's do a raid. And Jay's gonna hit a wrong button here. I almost did. That was there. I went right back to the screen. And look, now I hit an entry thing. I hit an ad. There you go. Yay! All right, there we go. Let me set the raid up here. We'll pass this along. Why isn't she coming up? There we are. You'll see Myriad in there as well. She's playing too. Both Myriad was the half-orc fighter, and she had Mandy had the Shadow Match Bounty Hunter from the game last week. 129, awesome. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you tomorrow morning. Oh, that's awesome. She'll be really happy. Make sure it went.
Yep, it went.
It went. Yeah, took it from like 12 to 140.
Nice.
That's a raid, Jay.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Finished.